Welcome to Mindshock. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and I am here with the one and only Flat Earth Dave, possibly the most prolific flat earther in modern history. Would that be accurate, Dave?
I don't know, man. I do put out a lot of output, but this is what I do full time because I think that the globe lie is why humanity is in a prison, and I want to see us break free from that prison. So I've dedicated my whole life to doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of questions for you, and for all the listeners, you were one of the most requested guests on Mindshock. Obviously, the original channel went down. I had to rebuild everything from scratch, but people really wanted you on, so they just kept asking, get Flat Earth Dave on because they want me to talk to you because they know I'm not going to ask you the same old questions, and they know I'm not going to accept any logical fallacy. So a lot of people that are on the fence, they really wanted me to have you on.
And I have to tell you something. I do the best that I can. I don't get everything right. I used 7 or 8 years ago. I used to say a circling sun in Antarctica disproves flat Earth. No, it just disproves our understanding of the sky. Right before that, I said the Earth was a globe. So we are capable of changing our minds based on new information. That's how I see the world. So, I listen to your flat Earth, your shows where you're analyzing flat Earth stuff, especially my stuff. Because you did is that the most number of parts you ever did on what's his face, Dr. Shiva? Is that the
That one
longest
was so
you've ever
tough.
done?
That one was the most painful one for me. It was so bad.
But you teach me new things. You teach me new arguments. So I thank you for that. So I listen, I listen to lots of stuff so I can say, hey, that's a good little point right there. I just actually got a good point out of a new video that just came out and I added it to my presentation. I'll show it to you later. All right.
Yeah,
So go ahead. Back to you.
yeah. So, well, while we're on the subject of Shiva, I mean, we do a lot of asides on Mindshock. That's actually one of the reasons a lot of people like the podcast is because I don't just brush things off. Like we actually get into each aspect of everything. So with Shiva, that wasn't even on my list to discuss with you, but we might as well. Did he ever get back to you?
Nope. Not he radio silent after that. And I knew it. I knew that he was just all full of hot water. I was like, hey, let's have a discussion and figure out the logistics. Nothing. I have a cell phone number. I'm not going to harass the guy, but nothing. I got nothing.
So
And
are
he
you
sounded,
familiar?
you go
Are
ahead.
are you familiar with his history with Fran Drescher?
I heard that after I didn't know it when I interviewed with him, but I heard about it afterwards.
Yeah, when I was so shocked. I don't I would think I was just looking at his wiki because a lot of people become compromised at certain points. So people who are not shills, like possibly Joe Rogan, which I wanted your opinion on him as well.
Sure.
We can get into that in a little bit, but I think it's possible Joe Rogan was not a shill early on and he
I agree.
became
I agree with that.
compromised.
100%.
Yeah. So with Shiva, if you've seen it, because I've actually followed Shiva for a little bit, I was aware of the whole email controversy. And during that big event of 2020, he was pretty vocal on the side of truth. And some of his presentations were actually quite deep. I don't know if
That's
he
where I
called
came
it.
across him too. Yeah, I was impressed.
Yeah, I don't know if I actually can't remember right now if he called it the New World Order, but whatever names people have for the powers that be, I call them the powers that be, uh, illegitimate as they are, they still have a certain amount of power and influence. And he exposed them quite well. I mean, he got pretty deep into the banking system and everything.
Yeah. So I give him respect there. Um, as you saw in the in the interview with him, I just kind of got quiet when he just wouldn't let me speak,
Well,
and
you're too nice. I think
I
your problem is you're too nice.
yeah, you said that. I heard that, and sometimes I am, but sometimes I was trying to give him maximum respect. Okay, that's what I was trying to do.
But it's so shocking to me. Like, I don't think he could come back from that. Like, for example, Mike Sartain, were you ever in contact with him after your
Yeah,
discussion?
a few times, but he's just interested in women, and doesn't care about the truth.
He
Look at
blocked
his
me.
Instagram. Have you seen
He
his Instagram?
No, no, I'm not on Instagram, but as soon as I responded with the analysis on Twitter, he blocked me instantly.
Yeah, yeah. He is just he's a good looking guy, that has Playboy models hanging on four on each side of his arms, and that's all he takes pictures of. So his life is all about that.
Well, he's an excellent example of a charlatan though, because he pretends to be about truth, science,
Yeah.
astronomy. Like he doesn't even know the basics of astronomy, but he pretends to. So his
Yeah.
charlatan, the charlatan meter, I might have to add that meter to my logical analysis, but he's a great example of a charlatan. But Shiva, I don't think I could call Shiva a charlatan per se. I was so shocked he didn't know the steps of the scientific method. I mean, that was mind-boggling to me.
It was a bit mind-boggling. Back to Sartain for a second. So there was a guy that works in his office or works with, I don't know, I'm associated with him that hooked up the podcast. And he said that when it was going on, he was there. And then when the pilot said you wouldn't hear the sonic boom in the plane,
Yeah.
and then we had to break for a minute, he said Sartain was running back and forth, screaming at everybody. Just screaming at them. You gotta do this. They said it was the funniest thing you'd ever seen. I was
It
like,
would have been so funny if somebody recorded that on a cell phone.
that's exactly what I said. I was like, did you record it? He's like,
But that
no.
wouldn't surprise. Like he's such a charlatan though. Even because I watched one or two of his other debates. One of them was on flat Earth again. One of them was on something else. But he just has the same game plan where he just goes with this verbal diarrhea onslaught of fallacies, but he doesn't understand what a fallacy is. So he just keeps reusing the same ones. And so
he thinks he's smart, right?
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, he's not a shill or anything. He's just a charlatan.
And you know what else I find very interesting between the scientism cultists and the people who question, regardless of whether you believe whatever model, just the questioners. The questioners are a lot more humble. Like you never claimed to be smart. I mean, I never claimed I was smart. I think I'm proficient and I may or may not have taught logic at various indoctrination facilities, as you call them.
Yes.
But
I think you know what? I don't think I'm a dummy, but I'm definitely not like smart on the level of space audits Allen or Whitsitt or like that technical formula smart. Like
yeah.
I'm horrible at that. We don't need to go there. I teach Flat Earth 101. Okay. I teach the basics.
Well, some of my favorite are you and when you and Whitsitt are both on, because then you have like a good mix of everything. Whitsitt's
Right.
the
He
best
takes the
I've
high
ever
level
seen.
and yeah, he's the best. And you know what? I don't know what's going on with him right now. He's been very quiet, very, very odd, and everyone's thinking that he's jumping ship. And I don't think that's the case, but I have no proof either way. So we'll see what happens.
I never thought he was jumping ship for a second.
I don't either, but I don't have any proof that he's not. That's what I'm saying.
Well, the last couple videos he put out, he was kind of making fun of the people who think that if the sun makes a particular motion, all of a sudden you're going to throw out all the laser tests, the infrared, the long range, like you're going to throw everything out because the sun made some kind of a motion you might not understand.
Bruce, what about this for logic? On the flat Earth model where we could have a dome over us, we could have 7, 10 domes over us. We could, right? The sun is a projection in through the dome, a reflection off of the dome. The sun is a transformer from another dimension, as what's his name says, the engineer that was in the car, space on his name. It'll come up. But you have all of these different ideas. You have Joe Hanvey's model. You have all of this stuff. You have Steve from Space Audit came up, talked about one where the toroidal field has a focal point, which could be at that latitude. All of these are interesting. They could be far-fetched, but nothing is more far-fetched than the heliocentric sun, which is helium and hydrogen that defy gravity on Earth, condensing into a space vacuum, creating gravity that holds onto Pluto, but ignores our moon. When our moon comes around our Earth towards the sun, shouldn't it speed up or slow down when it goes away? Right? Isn't the heliocentric sun crazier than anything you can make up about what the flat Earth sun is?
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. But what's funny is just there's a fundamental lack of comprehending the burden of proof, because the burden of proof is on the positive claim. So there's a lot of positive claims made about the heliocentric universe. There's a lot. And they haven't been, the burden of proof has not been met. And what's weird is anybody honest, like even if you believe the world, even if you believe the model of the universe, the heliocentric model of the universe, if you're honest, you're still going to say, like, where's the burden of proof? It's not there. You can choose to believe it. But if you were honest, and what's very fascinating is how few intellectually honest people. I don't think I've seen a single one on the side of the heliocentric globe in debate. I've seen a few on forums arguing a little bit. I actually had two PhDs who agreed to my terms. This is very curious because the Mindshock channel got shut down immediately after. There were two things that happened. One, I started the Austin Whitsitt versus so-called Professor Dave debate. I did part one, and also I announced that I would be moderating no fallacy debates, no fallacies allowed. And within 2 days, the channel was gone with no explanation.
Interesting.
And yeah, I'm sure it's all coincidental.
Yes.
I've also never had a stream shut down until I went over the occult NASA patches. So NASA has, I don't know if you've seen that one. I got to re-upload that. They have all of these patches representing their missions with all of this satanic occult symbolism. And these aren't the ones that are like super public, but I got these from GeoCities sites in the 90s. I saved everything. And it's hard to find, but these were the official patches. Like there's even, I have archives of NASA sites where they showed them. I mean,
Signs
it's
and
really
symbols
creepy
rule
stuff.
the world. You know, I've seen breakdown of many of the patches, and they're all crazy occultic stuff. You know, did you ever see the breakdown of the emojis? All of the emojis that we
No,
use?
I haven't seen that one.
They're all sigils. They're all like
I'll have to
demonic
check that out.
sigils. They're
Wow.
They're all modeled after demonic sigils.
Okay, so now since I will ask Whitsitt this off the record, but you reminded me of one of the things I wanted to ask in terms of just going back to the shill thing, where some people, even in the Mindshock chat, they were going on about Austin becoming compromised, something with his sister going missing. Then he became compromised at that point. I don't know anything about that, and obviously you don't have to answer if you don't, but that's something the Mindshock listeners were asking about.
I didn't even know he had a sister at that time. I heard she was missing. It was very strange. Didn't hear much about it. Then I heard she's found and forgot about it. That's all I know.
Yeah. So here's my analysis on Whitsitt. So he's the best I have ever seen, which is quite shocking because he's so young. And I think that was the issue with, like, for example, for Bryant Myers. Did he ever get back in touch with you?
No, Brian's gone. Brian, he disintegrated like the space shuttle. Coming back to Earth.
He's a good example. I believe he was honest in the first half, where he thought he was just there. He was going to educate you. Then once Austin pointed out his fallaciousness, then he became dishonest at that point because he seemed honest at the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got the same read or not.
I got I saw him. He started connecting with the Looney Tunes, and once that happened, it just went really downhill with him. He became like one of them, and I don't want anything to do with him.
Yeah, if you saw, like, on my breakdown, that's why I brought up like the basic physics textbooks that he should know about. The electric field is down. Like he was saying it wouldn't be. I mean, this is physics 101. That wasn't advanced physics or anything. That's like high school, lower level college physics. The electric field is down, like allegedly gravity is. So I don't know why I guess he just melted down and he just couldn't handle the fact that Austin knew what he was talking about. Because I think he wasn't expecting that.
Which book is that?
I have it on the screen. It's like one of the rudimentary physics. I have a physical copy of it. It's like one of the main physics books. I mean, if you want to actually,
it's saying the electric field flows down, or it just is down.
It is down. So for example, the ground is not neutral. I think he also said the ground was neutral. It is not.
Okay.
So if you really, just rewatch it. I have it all on the screen as he's talking. So that way, like if he ever watched my analysis, I don't think he did, because my intention was not to make him look foolish. It was simply to show the truth. Same thing with Sartain, because Sartain didn't know anything about Eddington or the fringe shift not even being close to what was predicted. I mean, it's off by 400%. So like all of these people like Craig, all these guys, they're saying, oh, but it matches the predictions, but it doesn't. Not that, even if it did, that wouldn't prove it true, obviously. But It doesn't match I mean, we're talking off by hundreds of percent, and they thought that was close enough to put the stamp on relativity. And the reason I think I'm unique is because I've been studying geocentrism for a while. So like way before flat Earth, like I've been into this stuff since about 2000, where I was studying geocentrism. It actually it's kind of crazy. Before they let the cat out of the bag, and that was one of my other questions for you. do you think flat Earth was let out of the bag on purpose? So we can get into math powerland a little bit. I asked Mark Sargent about it as well. I wanted to get your take on it because there was no legitimate flat Earth conversation until what was it, 2015 ish?
I have no idea. I mean, I could theorize, and my speculation, I one, it just happened organically, or two, you know, the everything we know about this world, all the technology, it's all old world technology, in my opinion, right? And the powers that be, or maybe the people that live in areas that we're unaware of or don't have access to, have all of the stuff. I think AI has been here for a long time. That 1960 shows, The Benders, where the guy is going to go work for this fake news company and the rockets and the moon landing and everything, and he says, well, who's planning all of these wars? All the wars are theater. He's like, oh, it's the big machine upstairs. They're talking about AI in 1960. So was there someone, I don't know, what do you call him, a white hat that said, hey, or an angel, who knows, that said, hey, let's let this out and let help humanity along? Or maybe it's just the changing of our sky, the sun doing what the sun does and raising our consciousness. People started to see it.
There's a darker theory similar to Alex Jones, which I wanted to ask you about, Alex, as well, but similar to Alex Jones, where it's if Alex is the shill. Again, I'm not alleging he is or he isn't, but there's a lot of questions with Alex Jones. But with either through Math Powerland or other means with Eric Dubay, because Eric Dubay's parents he's from Langley, Virginia, and so are his parents, and I don't know if you know about all that.
I do.
And then he's also, so he's pretty shady. If you look at the actual, someone did a deep dive, I believe I saved it somewhere. They actually ran all the financials on him.
He got $100,000 vaccine damage payout, right?
Yeah, I think there was more than one payout, and then there were also a lot of companies like Department of Defense contractors his parents were associated with or something like that. Again, I'm not sure. Maybe it's all fake, but someone actually pulled all the records and they showed all of them.
I'll give you my 2 cents on him. I don't like calling anybody a shill. And what is a shill? A shill is somebody that gets there first, that causes division. That's not Eric Dubay, right? And it wasn't for him, I might not have woken up, because I think Eric Dubay woke up Mark Sargent, and then Eric Dubay's videos along with Mark Sargent's clues are what got me at first. So, he put out lots of great content. If he's a shill, give me 10 more Eric Dubays, please. I'll take 10 more. Okay.
Well, so yeah,
but he's caused more division than all of the anti-flat earthers combined. We had a conference going. There was going to be thousands of people there. And Eric Dubay came out and goes, it's a shill fest. Everyone going there is a shill. And then literally 3/4 of the people canceled.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
first conference.
Yeah. So the dark theory is like same thing with Alex Jones, where they have these gatekeeper type shills where they release true information on purpose to sow the discord and the social unrest. So that way it'll eventually lead to some kind of martial law, civil war situation where they can take over faster. So that's the dark theory.
Yeah, it could be. Listen, let's say this this podcast. So when you put it out, it goes super viral, and I was going to say 8 billion, but more like 1.5 billion people on Earth watch it. That's my opinion. Okay, and everybody wakes up to flat Earth. Okay, what's that going to do to society? You want to break that? Yeah, it's going to be tough. Everything is going to just shut down. Martial law might be a good thing at that point, and maybe that's the whole plan. I don't know.
Yeah, so let me touch base with you on one more thing before we get into these. I'm going to ask you about Rogan and Jones and a couple other people.
Sure.
So the other reason I think I'm uniquely positioned, because a lot of people don't like that I go into flat Earth, but that's, for me, I'm a proponent of logic and reason, by definition, truth. So logic can be utilized for any topic, whether it's the paranormal or it's flat Earth. And so in the mainstream, the only thing consistent about the mainstream media is they never logically address anything. That's the only thing consistent about the MSM. Yeah. So, because you see that, like, it's always one of the most hilarious things was when Mark Sargent was on some kind of news program or some kind of show where it's like, oh, it's our debunking Tuesdays or something where they're debunking conspiracies. Notice how it's not, we're getting to the bottom of conspiracies. We're finding out if it's not whether they're finding out if they're true or not.
Correct.
They're automatically set up to debunk. And so the illegitimacy is just so obvious of everything in the mainstream media. And I think flat Earth, but there's another topic too, statism. So you've mentioned it before, obviously, government, mind control. So people that have been that have been studying just philosophy at a base level, how are you going to have humans control other humans? By what moral decree do they have any kind of legitimacy to take your money? Whether they call it tax, well, they can call it whatever they want. They call it XYZ, and they take money from you. They say it's for your own good, but what is the legitimacy behind that? So, what I find curious, and this is most of my work is based on this, is exposing just the lack of logic in all of these systems, whether it's government, whether it's science, all of them have been co-opted and usurped. That's another trend you see, which we'll actually have to touch upon mud flood Tartaria in a moment as well, where everything has kind of been co-opted because before Einstein, the world of science and physics was actually semi-legitimate. With Maxwell and all of the electromagnetic theories, everything before Einstein, there was a period of time it seems like all that stuff was pretty legit with Tesla and everything. Then Einstein comes along and he just wrecks. He takes a wrecking ball to all of established electromagnetic theory, which works perfectly, and all of Tesla's based on. And we're actually communicating not because of so-called globe science. We're communicating because of Tesla's, or allegedly, because of obviously we weren't there, we don't know, but we're communicating because of electromagnetic theory, not relativity. Everything we're communicating through electronics.
It's to me, it's just amazing that this argument's still going on. But I don't think it's been going on for that long. When you look at all of history, is there any other history before, let's just say the late 1800s that talks about a globe Earth?
None.
We have any proof of it? None.
I exposed, I think it was Soy Lodge, aka Lower Lodge.
Nice.
That was one of them. There was another part where they're claiming that the Greeks figured out that the world was a globe. They did not. There was a certain portion of Greeks that dispute over the shape of the earth continued into Roman time. There was no solution to it. And I have all the links and all the references to it. One of the seminal works in physics is Lucretius's On the Nature of Things, where Lucretius himself, I mean, this is the early theories of atomism and all of everything, all the atom, all these structures, the basics of everything we learn today was written by Lucretius on the nature of things. This is 101 stuff here. So it's always hilarious when you got guys like Sartain or the guy in Lower Lodge claiming he knows something about like these are basics that they don't know.
When you say the Greeks knew, was it the Eratosthenes thing that they knew, or did they have another way to know?
So it wasn't just Eratosthenes. This was attributed. There was a couple of Greeks who ran with it, and there were different schools of thought on it. By Lucretius was going into Roman times, where not only did he disavow the globe, he called it, lack of a better translation, silly nonsense. And he was with the snow globe theory, basically, where he believed not only that it was flat, but that it was an enclosed system with some kind of, I don't know if he called it a firmament, but like effectively a snow globe. And he actually went on to make fun. So this is one of the greatest minds in Greek Roman history. And this is considered the foundation of science and physics. And it's amazing how many of these people arguing that are pretending to know things, they've never even read it. I mean, this is 101 stuff.
Right. They were teaching flat Earth and globe Earth together in the late 1950s. So, you saw my interview with Ruth, right?
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was great. I wasn't even interviewing her about flat Earth. I was talking to her about the World's Fairs because she had been. And she was telling me about the lights and everything. And then when I asked her, and then after that, we found people all over the place. And, talk about coincidences. I was like, this is amazing. And everyone's like, it went super viral. Hundreds of channels uploaded it. And I said, everybody, if you have access to a nursing home, go find the oldest person there and interview them. 1 week later, the thing in 2020 happened and all nursing homes were locked down.
Well, I didn't put that together. That must be another one of those coincidences. But you want to hear something crazy?
That's a coincidence.
You want another mind shock?
Go.
So I asked a lot of older people, so anywhere between in their 70s and 80s. I asked them, because I asked them too, because I wanted to know about Tartaria, because I want to know Like, because if they were around, pre 1950, I wanted to know what their parents and grandparents told them. Because I talked to people, European people all over Europe. That's where they live. They really could. There's two curious aspects. I asked them about that and flat Earth. I'll give you the flat Earth one first. They said they were taught globe Earth in school, but they didn't believe it. Imagine this. Imagine this. So you're a child sitting in a classroom in whatever, 1930, 1940. They are teaching globe Earth, but the kids don't believe it. So, and I was kind of asking, well, why didn't you believe? Because I asked them, do you think the Earth moves? They said no. I mean, these are 70s and 80-year-olds today. And
Yeah.
I asked them maybe about 5 years ago, and they don't know anything about. They've never seen a flat Earth video. It's something they don't think about. They don't really discuss. I asked them, and I said, "Do you think the Earth is a spinning globe?" And they just said no. They didn't think about. They didn't even have to think about it. They just said no. And I asked them why. And then I asked them, "What were you taught in school?" And they said, "We were taught that it was a spinning globe, but we just didn't believe it."
For them.
That's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because
It's
today,
super interesting.
like,
Yeah.
well, they also had less fluoride, less injections, less, GMO, none of that stuff. So their brains,
And they didn't have indoctrination television shows like Sesame
yeah.
Street and
Oh, yeah,
Walt
they didn't
Disney
have,
and-
yeah, they didn't
yeah.
have TVs. But I just thought it was so fascinating that young children didn't believe their teacher. Isn't that interesting?
I love it. I love it.
And it's
We're
just
at
the topic because I asked them if anybody had asked them that. They said no, and they'd never really given it much thought. But they just thought, it just doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense. So that goes to Austin Whitsitt's. He had a presentation where default, because I was having trouble with default being flat and stationary for sure. I mean, there's no question. There's
Yeah.
no question. You can't say we're moving as a default. That's not a default. Like if you're just standing around, you're not moving. So but the globe, that's a little bit more interesting because obviously you're not going to just randomly assume it's a globe. But also, if we're in a simulation, it's not necessarily any kind of shape, right? So it's the default. I don't know if I could say the other thing that I don't hear anybody talking about. If the Earth is flat, is convex. Like imagine a table with like a convex lens surface.
Mhm.
You would have curvature. I'm not saying there is curvature, but even if there were curvature proof, that wouldn't prove a globe. That would prove a convex surface.
Here's this is how I see it. We live in some sort of toroidal field, right? All of the luminaries are in that toroidal field. The planets, wandering stars have their own path, right? This is the dielectric plane that we live on. This is where physicality is. Everything else is non-physical as far as we can tell. So I would say this plane here that we live on is 1% of the entire Earth system. That's what I'm talking about. This 1%. All of this other stuff, we're trying to figure out what's going on in the sky. So are we in a simulation? I think the sky is a simulation. Okay, for sure. Maybe I don't know what the Earth is, but we can measure things. We can hit things with hammers on the Earth. We can see where the sun is. Like, am I allowed to ask what state you're in?
I'm in a bunker.
Don't answer it. Don't answer it. It's okay. So I think Hawaii is out here. So it must be around noon or a little afternoon. Hawaii's over here, I think. So it's a little afternoon, right? So wherever the sun is on this map, you can call somebody up and say, what time is it? Where's the sun? So we kind of have the GP position of the sun within our living area works perfectly. What's beyond? What happens when you get closer to the outer area? Maybe there's a dome out there. I don't know. That's all up for grabs. And what's going on in the sun, how we see the sun. I think everybody sees their own sun.
Yeah, that's really interesting. When I first saw that, I immediately had flashbacks of being a kid driving in a car because before the cell phone age, you had nothing to do when you were sitting in a car. So all you could do is watch the sun. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking about that when I was a kid. It's like, why does the sun always seem like it's following you?
I used to say on show that, like, when you tell your mom, hey, mom, the sun or the moon, it's following me. And the parents said, no, it's not. They were wrong. It is following you.
Well, the other thing that I found curious, and if you have a chance to check out my Imaginary Friend podcast, I find that very fascinating how young children have imaginary friends And the child's mind, before they've been thoroughly indoctrinated, the mind works completely different because they're not told you're wrong about everything. Because if you can brainwash somebody by simply telling them you're not seeing what you think you're seeing, just like 1984.
Yeah.
So children have a much more perceptive view of what's going on around them. So an adult cares more about not looking stupid than a child. So an adult, how silly would it be for an adult to say the sun is following? Because their adults are scared of sounding stupid. So their perception of reality is more based on that fear, their ego, than it is on actual reality. And you can see how that explains almost everything about your conversation.
When you're talking intelligently about flat Earth, to the other people, you sound stupid, but anything out of their mouth is the dumbest thing you've ever heard.
Okay, here I have
And they have no idea. They have no idea how dumb they are.
Do you want an old quote you can throw at people in their face?
Sure.
When you speak wisdom to a fool, all they hear is foolishness.
Okay. I like it.
Because think about it. If they weren't a fool, they would understand what you were saying. But
Right.
since they're a fool, that wisdom, it doesn't compute.
I get all crazy comments and I get emails just from globe trolls, never any globe proofs, just insults and just nonsense. And I literally screenshot them and I have a folder of I have two folders, one from globers and one from appreciative flat earthers for helping wake them up. And I want to make a book where the front page, the right hand page is a glober thing, and the left hand page is a flat earth comment, back and forth. And there's some really hysterical ones.
Well, that's actually one of the reasons I cover flat Earth as well as other conspiracies like Tartaria. I've seen in recent years, like the past year or two, I've seen more meltdowns over Tartaria than I have over flat Earth.
You know what? It's crazy how some flat earthers can't see it. The Tartaria page, which is the Griffin button, is becoming one of the most popular hit pages on my app. I just added this guy from TikTok. He's pretty funny. I got a language warning on there. But there's some great stuff. There's this new channel called Our History in a Different View. Amazing. And he literally just released a one on flat earth, a big one on flat earth. So I'll be featuring that in a couple days. But there's so much good stuff on here. And of course, do you watch my lunch break at all? Do you watch anything?
Yeah,
or you
yeah. So I actually did a so-called definitive podcast where I kind of mashed up some of like the leading Tartaria researchers. It was like I did a 3 hour Tartaria definitive edition. And yeah, I put my lunch break was on there as well as a few of the others. And it is so fascinating. I actually think it might be a little bit more triggering than flat Earth because what's interesting.
Why is that?
So I have a few theories on that. One, so the flat Earth thing is almost like the 9/11 thing, where in mainstream media, like the subliminal messages and the predictive, I did a whole podcast on predictive programming. With flat Earth, there are so many digs. When you have Obama saying we don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society, that gets ingrained in everybody's brain to the point where flat Earth is so silly and stupid, they're never going to think about it seriously. But that never happened with Tartaria. That never happened with Mudflood. So when you bring up in your face photographs, when you bring up the dates, one of the most I forgot which state it was in, but on the definitive edition that I did, I brought up like this entire huge stone marble government building with giant pillars. The population of that entire city was like 2,000. Why did they need to?
And they had horses and buggies and no electric cars, no trucks, no deliveries.
Yeah, they had a couple of huts. Why do they need a gigantic government building with Greek architecture? There's less than 2,000 people living there.
These castles here in America, and then they show a log cabin. Meanwhile, Abe Lincoln was sleeping in this crappy little log cabin. So, I mean, it's amazing. Did you see the one in Yankee Stadium?
No, I didn't see that one.
So anyone, if you have the app, just use the little search button and just search Yankee Stadium. A guy asked AI, "Hey, if all of the Yankee Stadium was built, I think in less than a year, or it was crazy, stupid amount of time," and he's like, using horses and buggies, let's say all materials were readily available and they were only 10 miles away, how long would it take? And it's so ridiculous. Yeah. It's incredible.
Well, the hydroelectric generator at Niagara doesn't make any sense.
No, did you see below the falls, there's like a building underneath the falls.
Is it still there?
It's still there, but it's like off limits. And like you could see the doors and like the
Oh, I
walls.
haven't
It's
seen that.
at the bottom and it goes into the mountain.
Oh, that's cool.
It's wild. Yeah, it's like nobody wants to.
Well, also one of the most mind shocking is obviously the Grand Canyon, and I'm sure you're familiar with the whole theory that the Holy Land is actually Utah, Judah.
I didn't know
Utah.
that. That's a good one. I like it.
Oh, I forgot the guy. I have to send this to you. This guy actually goes through Bible passages and the description of Jerusalem and how the mountains are on this side of the main road. It's actually in Utah. And
Wow.
there's like a Jericho. There's all of these biblical names in Utah. So this theory, I'm surprised you haven't heard of it. It's kind of big. Not as big as Tartaria itself, but it's like one of these sub theories, kind of like Satan's little season. You've heard of
That's
that one,
interesting.
right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the Holy Land being the American Southwest, that's kind of like one of these sub theories, like Satan's little season. There's so much evidence for it when you go through the Bible, and then all of the named locations in the Bible, they correspond to the American Southwest. They don't correspond to modern day Israel. And the
Yeah.
distance between Israel, like even Egypt, the pyramids, there's pyramids in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I know that there's flat Earth triggers people, but Tartaria triggers some flat earthers, which is interesting
Yeah,
because when I have somebody that asks what I do, like I was recently somebody asked me what I do. We're having a nice conversation. It's like, well, I do podcasts. Oh, but what? I go, well, I teach people about alternative history. And they're like, oh, about what? And I started with the old world. I started with old buildings and stuff. And I was like, did you know this? You know that? They dug out the train tracks. And they're like, wow. And so then they're all in there. Then you're like, oh, it's bigger than that. They're like, what do you mean? Then you hit them with flat Earth, and they're all warmed up already. It's like the greatest
That's
intro.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually, I think people try to do it the other way around, and it doesn't work.
You know what? It's different for everybody. Sometimes people, just the fact that YouTube's hiding it, that'll wake them up. Other times it's a biblical verse. Other time it's, a flight route. You just kind of have to size up the person and figure it out.
Do you still watch any old Hollywood movies from like the 60s, 70s, 80s?
I try to occasionally unplug from truth and watch something good. You have any suggestions? I'm always interested.
Well, my point there, I'm really into movies actually. I used to actually live in LA and work in the film industry at one point. And so I'm very familiar with Hollywood, nothing super big, just indie stuff, but I knew some of the Holly weird people. And you know what's weird? This was before most of my research. So all I had to go off was the weird vibe because I didn't know, this is before most of this stuff was on the internet, before YouTube, before any of this. All I had to go off was these people are weird and there's a weird vibe and that's all I had. I mean, it was enough. It kind of saved me from going too deep there. But if you look at some of these old movies, I find myself watching just any movies that are set in major cities like New York, LA. The older the movie, the more obvious it is that the architecture doesn't belong there. Like watch any movie from the 70s or that's based in New York. And the buildings simply do not match. Like the government buildings are so spectacular. Why is there a Greek temple in the middle of New York City? It doesn't make any sense.
And every old movie always has, they've been working on the railroad, right? But any old pictures you see of the people working on the railroad, they have pickaxes and shovels, not hammers, right?
Yeah,
and the ties are already ground in the dirt. They're not on top of the dirt.
I forget the name of the channel. It's some Russian channel where it's in Russian, but because I saw one of the first Tartaria guys, man, his Philip Druzadin. Shout out to Philip Druzadin. Have you heard of him?
Sounds familiar.
He was the absolute, I think he might have been the first along with Flat Earth British, Martin Lightke.
Martin, Martin. I love Martin.
I think Philip Druzadin might have started a year or two before Martin. And he's the one that exposed like a lot of the sphinxes and pyramids in Russia. It wasn't him, but there was some related video where this guy was picking apart old Hollywood movies, like even going back to the 40s. And in the back, some of the movies in the distant background, you could see buildings that are not supposed to be there.
Right.
And I mean, they're really far because it was obviously that wasn't the focus. But there's people now scouring. Like there's just so many people out there with so much free time. They're scouring and they're just finding all these things that simply don't match. And I think that's why Tartaria is a little bit more triggering because you can literally, if you live in a major city, you can go downtown and look at the building. And you can see that the architect, so I think that's why it's a little bit more triggering. Whereas flat Earth, it's almost inaccessible for definitive proof. I don't know if you've heard me talk about my definitive way to determine that the Earth is not a globe.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So it's not cheap by any means, but it's a lot cheaper than pretending to go to the moon or pretending to do.
And then I'm going to give you mine. I don't know if you've heard it.
I'm not sure. So, okay. So not chemtrails, but non-toxic. Have you seen those air shows where they have supposedly non-toxic colored exhaust?
Yes.
And it goes away pretty quick. So I don't think but make sure it's not toxic, obviously. So in Antarctica, basically, if the Earth is a globe, and do you have the bottom part of the globe you can put on the screen?
Bottom part of the globe.
Yeah, like Antarctica. Do you have like a Antarctica map?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. So if you you'd have to fly a plane from the southern tip of South America to Antarctica, from Australia to Antarctica, and from the southern tip of Africa to Antarctica. And to make it definitive, you would also do it from various island groups in between South America, Africa, and Australia, just to make it definitive. And then you have people in boats stationed all along the way. Everybody's filming. You have drones flying next to the planes to substantiate.
This is getting too incredible to do.
I mean, I think it could be done for less than 5 million, I think.
All right. I got the same thing, but an easier way to do it. You ready?
Yeah.
So you get 2 planes in Shilling and you fly to whatever base that's closest and you prove that you're there. Think we can do that. Then you got half the people, people on both planes turn and they're going to go around. If the circumference is 10,000 miles at 500 miles an hour, it should take about 10 hours. And they fly around and they meet right there. Now, does that prove that the Earth is a globe? Well, if the Earth is flat, it doesn't prove either, because there could just be a continent off of Antarctica.
Correct.
Right. But on a flat Earth, it would look like this. You go from Chile to Antarctica and you fly around, and it would take what did it say? It said 78 hours. Hold on. It would take 68 hours, right? Because
I actually think, I think that's harder than mine. It's less expensive, but it's harder.
Well, but here's the thing. This can never happen because no plane can fly for 68 hours. And that would prove that the Earth is flat, right? So the trick is we could have bases like this. We could have a base here, right? There could be a base here and a base here.
Yeah.
So that doesn't prove anything, right? So you then have to fly to Australia, and we can give them 4 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours. Go ahead, make it there in 10 hours, because it would take like 80 hours to get back. And they'd have to fly to Australia, because to get back, they'd have to fly all the way around, because they have to follow the shoreline. Can't happen.
The problem with that one, that still leaves room for funny business. Like, where if you have the colored exhaust and line of sight verification from both boats watching the planes and the colored exhaust.
So you have boats watching?
Yeah, so you have boats. So the colored exhaust you'd be able to see it from X distance away. Okay. And so you have multiple boats. I should probably do a visual representation of this, but you have boats, like you have several boats between Antarctica and the southern tip of South America. So the colored exhaust, you would get it to stay in the sky for 10 hours. And you would have the drones flying on each side 24-hour live stream. But the reason I want to do it simultaneous, and this ties into the final experiment, because how do you know that South America, Africa, and Australia are where they say they are in relation to Antarctica? If you do simultaneous flights with colored exhaust, because with the colored exhaust, you have people on boats being able to verify instead of trust me, bro, of the pilot or the people on the plane.
The reason that won't happen is because the Earth is flat and that area is just way too big. And so it's never going to happen. It should be happening all the time. That people from the base over near Australia should be coming to visit the people off the Chile base, but that never happens. It never happens.
Yeah,
did you hear my gyro one? Tell me what you think
I
about
think
this.
so. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got a gyro, and if we turn it sideways and I walk down the hallway, it's going to measure the hallway. If I took a turn, it's still going to point the direction that it points, right? But on a globe or flat Earth, the longitude lines are straight lines. You would fly in a straight line, a magnetically straight line, right? You'd fly in a straight line. But on a globe or a flat Earth in the north, you have to constantly turn to the right to maintain a magnetic heading of 270. You have to constantly turn to the right. So if you had a gyro saying, okay, west is this way when we take off, and I'm going to follow the gyro, west will peel off to the right. Either way, globe or flat in the north, west will peel off to the right. If you dead reckon, magnetic west will peel off to the right. So that doesn't prove anything, except if you go to the south. In the south, west will peel off to the left if the Earth is a globe. One flight with a gyro, maintaining a dead reckoning, and if west peels off to the left, Earth is a globe. If west peels off to the right,
I think the other issue with doing this in a passenger plane, there might be an issue.
I went to it at 747.
Yeah, I
and
think if you
want lunch served too.
Yeah, I think if you did it in a fighter jet, it would be a little easier because if you're trying, because the faster this, because with some of these more minute, imperceptible adjustments, one could argue that the sensitivity of instruments. But with a fighter jet, if you're going three times the speed of sound, that would actually be good for that.
Well, but you could also prove that when let's say we get the plane here in the U.S., we fly to Brazil, using the gyro, saying, okay, south is this way, and you'll see that south will not drift off. That when you're heading south and you have the gyro lined up with the magnetic south, south will not change. Hey, that doesn't prove flat Earth or globe if it works on both.
You actually just gave me, I just thought of another idea now that I'm talking about fighter jets. Why not just have a few fighter jets, a fighter jet go from, because we need fighter jets, because otherwise it's going to take too long. We need things going like Mach 3, Mach 4 that just fly from, because they could actually make it without refueling if the globe distances are correct.
You only need to go a couple hundred miles.
Well, I mean, to verify.
West will peel off.
No, I mean to verify the position of continents. Because with the final experiment, one of the issues are, even if the sun is making that lap, if you haven't determined the variables, you haven't proved that Australia is in this position relative to Antarctica, you haven't proved that South Africa is, you haven't proved that, maybe you proved that if they went from South America, right? Yeah, so maybe they can prove that they traveled from South America to Antarctica, but that's not enough. You need to know where the other continents are for that experiment to mean anything at all. And they didn't do that. So the variables are not set, therefore it does not meet the criteria for an experiment anyway. So it's just, and what was weird about Shiva is he was kind of pretending like that was legitimate. That didn't make any sense to me either. Like he almost opened with that.
Yeah. Think about this. The SR-71 flies like, Mach 3 or whatever, Mach 4, like 3,200 miles an hour. And it can't, when at that speed, it can't turn left or right. That also means that it can't turn up or down. It has to go straight. Now, the SR-72 allegedly goes 4,000 miles an hour. The curvature drop rate at that is 1.11 miles per second. So you have to nose down at 1.1 miles per second to follow the curve at that speed. That's like 80 G's to the ceiling.
Yeah, I wonder what's built into their calibration, because I don't know the design of these planes. I would assume that the built-in gyro, especially with any of these computer, because it would be easier if there was some kind of analog plane that could go this fast where it didn't have anything built in, because it could almost trick the pilot, right? Because if you're the pilot and you don't know that it's doing what it's doing, you think you're going a particular way, which you're not.
I think that on all commercial flights, there's a box that supposedly makes your gyro adjust.
Yeah.
And if it ever breaks, they're not allowed to open it. They have to just swap it out. And there's only one company that supplies these. And some research.
Is it a black cube box?
It's not. I don't think it's black. I think it's red for some reason, but I don't know the color. Um, and uh, and there was a flight that was going to take off, but when they were going through their system check on the runway, that it wasn't working, and the airport didn't have any more boxes. They're like, okay, just go. It's all right. Just check in every 15 minutes, and we'll adjust you. And
Wow.
the pilot checked in, and they never needed any adjustments.
That's
And
pretty weird.
yeah. And so after that, some researchers tried to call the company and get a comment. You can't. It's just voicemails. There's just voicemails. There's nobody there. You can't get anybody. Weird, right?
Yeah, but this whole thing is so weird because if they really wanted, it would be, if the Earth is a globe, it seems like it would be so easy to prove it. I mean, what's a few fighter jet flights with live streams? Because if you fly from like if you fly a fighter jet from Australia to South America, and then from South Africa across Antarctica to whatever group of islands is right there. If they did those flights simultaneous with live streams and you could see the other plane, like if they timed it and you could see the other plane, like that would be pretty solid evidence of a
Yeah, I
globe.
don't know, but how are they going to live stream it? There's they're out in the middle of nowhere. They're on
No,
the
live stream from inside the fighter jet.
Yeah, but I don't even know. There's no. You don't believe in satellites, do you?
Well, as you famously say, belief is the enemy of knowing.
Yeah, that's from Crow, by the way. So I stole that from Crow.
Okay. Yeah,
I
I
say,
like
but
that.
I changed it. Belief is the lazy man's knowing.
Yeah, so I think they might have some instrumentation to live stream on the jet, right? They could have some kind of they have some pretty powerful Wi-Fi signals
Maybe.
that they could send. I mean, this is going back to the 50s, nothing to do with the shape of the Earth, but back in even the 50s, they were using Wi-Fi in World War One. I don't know if you know that.
No.
They had not Wi-Fi for internet, but they were using wireless comms, which is kind of weird because in World War Two, I'm not sure how much wireless comms they used, but in World War One, they had wireless comms.
I don't know where you want to go next, but I want to can I run a logical question for you
Sure.
about
Yes.
so in the winter in the north, I'm in Connecticut. Are we closer to the sun or farther from the sun
Okay. So if you're going here, this is
on the
actually,
globe?
I know where you're going with this. This is one of, so actually, this is going to segue perfectly into my next question for you. I almost, okay, I'll answer it, but this is, I was going to ask you if there was, because I've listened to quite a bit of your interviews. I just, right now, I just can't remember what you said to the question, was there a single defining moment where you kind of abandoned the heliocentric globe?
That's my question to me.
Yeah.
It's when I bought a P900, and I went down to the beach, had a perfect day, and I zoomed in on a buoy over 10 miles away, and it should have been behind over 60 feet of curvature, and I could see the surface of the water beyond it. And so I immediately assumed that the curvature calculator was wrong, and I think I went to Mick West's debunking site and said, "Oh no, it's a hump. You have to split that." I'm like, "Okay, the buoy's not 30 feet tall. I can still see it." And
Mick West is a fallacy machine.
yeah. So I went to the worst
Yeah,
source
yeah.
possible to give them, because we can do that. We can give them the benefit of the doubt. Oh, you want to say it's 50% refraction? Okay, I can still see it. Okay, I shouldn't be able to see it.
You know what one of my favorite globe Earth arguments is?
But
The refraction is always the perfect amount to make it look as if it were flat. So regardless of the size of what's being refracted or the distance, it just so happens that it magically ends up to where it would be if it were flat. Isn't that funny?
right, and this you've seen this a million times, but
Yeah.
we have these numbers here are with 50% refraction. I think. I mean, I rounded down like so huge, right? And so, are we looking across a flat
Well, it's
lake?
actually, I think you gave them too much of a benefit of doubt because you're comparing that refraction to apparent horizon, not true horizon. So it would have to be even worse refraction
Yeah.
so the margin of error is actually much, much worse than that, because the true horizon is not the horizon you see.
Right. On a globe, the horizon is less than a mile away at 6 inches. And all of these refract up to the perfect amount to stop tangent to there.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
funny. It's
I
funny
mean,
how they all have to refract different distances, though.
well, they're farther away. So the farther more they refract up. And they
Yeah, but
always
they
stop
always,
exactly at eye level. They never stop
yeah,
at 10 feet above eye level. You know,
yeah. That's
feet.
what's
Why
funny.
aren't they flying in the air?
That's what's funny.
Yeah, why don't
Yeah,
things refract sideways? When somebody takes a right hand turn down a city block, why don't they refract out and I can still see them?
that's funny. No, you also said that you had a really interesting one, a curved hallway. That was a really good one. And then you just flipped it vertically, because nobody has trouble believing what is going to be hidden behind a curved hallway, right? Because
Yeah.
you had some kind of image of a curved hallway.
Um,
And then everybody agreed with you. As soon as you turned it vertically, their brains melted. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah.
As
So when
soon
you
as
walk around there,
everybody's good with that.
yeah, if
Ev-
I walk around there and I have the Hubble telescope right here or
yeah,
the James Webb, can
right.
I see that person
Nope.
past this line?
But as soon as you flip that image, as soon as you rotate that image, it's brain melt. Yeah, yeah, their brains are
Yeah.
gone.
Their brains melt.
Yep. Same
Right.
image.
Yeah.
Okay, so to
No,
answer your question,
go
so
ahead.
for me, like I said, I was into geocentrism for a really long time. There was actually a forum. I wish I could find it. I've been putting feelers out on all these old physics forums. There was a forum where over 200 physics professors or former physics professors congregated to discuss geocentrism, because they were not convinced that the Earth moved around the sun. These are physics professors. These are masters and PhDs. Over 200. This is early 2000s. So this is actually where I kind of was introduced to it, because I was going through the fraud of relativity and all of that. And I thought that was fascinating. But when I got to flat Earth, something I had never thought about, what are the chances that during an eclipse, the sun and the moon would line up to a degree? Like, because if they're the distances claimed at the sizes claimed, so what a parallel I thought of was like, if you throw a beach ball down the street, then you throw a golf ball down the street. If you put your head down to eye level on the street, what are the chances the golf ball is going to perfectly block the beach ball to the degree?
And what are the chances that they'll line up and that while we're corkscrewing with this
Oh yeah, while
gravitational
we're moving.
more
Yeah,
than
yeah.
three body problem, it would happen again and again and again in patterns that repeat every 18 years. Okay. There
Yeah.
is no number big enough
That's
to
tough.
make
That's like
shots.
winning the
Right.
lottery. That's worse than winning the lottery every single day.
How about this? Sirius. So when we look at Sirius, we see a little star. We zoom in with our P1000, and we can get it to make it about this big. The same zoom on Orion makes it almost the same size. It's a little bit smaller because it's farther away, right? But it's 52 million times farther than Sirius. Okay, so this star, for in order for us to zoom it in this big, has to be 52 million times farther than 50 trillion miles times 52 million. And somehow we can zoom in on that and
Yeah, I
see it.
think the I think the only response there is, "Are you serious?"
That's funny.
That one's tough. But yeah, the moon and the sun lining up, and then I think where you're going is first of all, there's an issue with the tilt of the Earth. How can the Earth be tilted in three-dimensional space? How can a spheroid tilt in three-dimensional space?
Well, it's tilting in relationship to the sun.
But you don't know
So,
where the sun, but you don't know where the sun tilt is.
well, no, in relationship to the sun ball. It doesn't matter where the sun is tilted. The sun could be spinning. It doesn't matter. We're not looking at the pole. We're looking at the sun, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
the
No, no, no. I
and
understand.
we're
I
tilted
understand. I understand the claim. I'm saying, how would you know that tilt?
with the sextant.
Hmm,
Maybe.
I mean,
So he
how did they figure out the tilt? I haven't actually ever seen. I've looked it up. I haven't found any kind of legitimate explanation on how they tilted it, how they figured out the tilt, because you would need to know the relative size of the Earth.
yeah.
because I mean, there's a lot of problems with the heliocentric model, obviously, but yeah, I get what you're saying. So let me, I'm going to answer it this way, and then you let me know if it's good enough or not. When you're sitting around a campfire, what happens when you turn, and let's say it's pretty cold out. What happens when you turn your back to the fire? Is your face going to be a whole lot colder? Let's say this is winter.
Yeah. Face will
And
be
the
cold.
fire is really close to you. Now, obviously, if the fire were further away, it would have to be a lot more powerful to warm you, right? When you're facing it.
Yeah.
And now what happens? Turn your back when the fire is far away. How cold is your face going to be?
Colder.
Exactly. So
Farther
if
away.
right. So if the sun is hot enough to give you a sunburn on your face, when it's nighttime, let's say this is summer now, anywhere on Earth, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the shape of the Earth. None of that matters. If the sun is super powerful and it's night and you're burned during the day at nighttime, how cold would you be? When there's no sun.
Really cold.
Exactly. So how does the heliocentric model claims that a slight tilt. I mean, I know the claim doesn't add up either, but
here's the point. Here's the point I'm making. Right. So I spent the winter in Mexico, right here on the Yucatan Peninsula. Ignore
okay.
So, and Connecticut is just a couple thousand miles here. Look at the amount of
Yeah,
tilt.
that's not far. Right.
Very little difference, right? It was 87 degrees Fahrenheit while it was 15 degrees Fahrenheit in Connecticut. And they say that's because of the tilt, right? Because we're tilted away, but the spin is also tilt, right?
Right.
Because if you're looking at it where the sun is, the spin is also tilted. It doesn't matter what the axis is. So in the morning, when the sun is 5-10 degrees off the horizon, I could feel the heat. It's hot. I could take my shirt off. I could get a suntan.
Yeah.
But home at noon, when the sun is as high as it is in the sky, I can't even feel the heat on my face.
But not only that, at night, shouldn't it be exponentially colder, not just 10 degrees? Because if the sun is that powerful, like even in the winter, whatever your temperature is right now, what's the temperature there right now?
It's I don't know, 30 right now.
During the day. During the day.
Oh, during the day, it's like 40, 50, 60.
So 40, 50 with the sun. So without the sun, like let's just basic logic. Wouldn't it be like negative 500? If the sun is that powerful?
So supposedly the sun heats up the earth, and then at nighttime the thermal heat is what's leaving. And
yeah. Brian, So Bryant Myers brought that up, and obviously that would be ever present though. That's not going to magically disappear, because if it's that powerful, if that ever present heat up of the earth during the day, that would mean it would be a whole lot hotter. Like, why would it not be present when the sun is also shining?
Right.
So that's an issue. So and I know what you're getting at, because you brought that up before on the distance, how closer you are to the sun. It doesn't match up either. None of it matches up.
Yeah, but the angle, the tilt. You have to remember the tilt. It's tilting all day long.
The alleged tilt.
It's the alleged tilt.
Yeah.
But why is this is the heat path? Why is if the Earth is tilted, why is it heated like this? Why isn't it heated like this? Right? Because this is the part that's pointing directly at the sun, and these are getting less heat. So the heat line should be this way. Why is the heat line tilted?
I would assume they would say, I'm just because I've never heard anybody really address that. Yeah. I would guess, because they usually go with these post hoc fallacies where they, instead of actually looking at it objectively, they say, oh, well, that must be because our whole galaxy is slightly tilted in this arm of the galaxy. That's what I assume they would say.
I mean, the sun goes in this path back and forth. Here it is. It matches perfectly. It's just funny how everything matches flat Earth and doesn't match the globe.
It must be a coincidence.
It's a coincidence. Yes, it is. Imagine if the whole world was taught the Earth was flat, and then sometime later in life they came by and told you that it spins and does everything that the helios.
You would laugh so hard.
Yeah, there's no way there would be any globe Earth.
Well, especially if their argument is "trust me, bro." If that's all they'd have to provide something substantial instead of the alleged transit of Venus. Like, they have to have more than that, because they're guessing the variables. And so they're stacking assumptions on assumptions like a house of cards. I go over this every flat Earth debate where somebody wants to bring in the astronomy because and what's curious is that Shiva brought up first principles but never adhered to it. So,
No.
but I thought that was interesting that he brought it up. That's a great idea, Shiva. Let's go blank sheet. And then all of a sudden the sheet already has gravity on it. It has
It's
mantle.
curvature.
How
It's
did
got
those get
everything.
on? How did those get on a blank sheet?
I I I watched all 6 episodes.
It was legitimately the most painful one I ever did because he wasn't even that funny because Craig is hilarious. I think Craig is the most entertaining anti-flat
Like
Earth
fight the
grifter.
vet shirt.
Yes, yeah, because
Nice.
he's so utterly clueless, but he seems to genuinely enjoy humiliating himself, and the whole presentation is kind of funny. Whereas Shiva was just painful.
So I've got your playlist on here.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, there we are. We got six episodes or
yeah.
seven. Six.
That was tough. Yeah, that was really tough.
That was a tough one.
But some people in the chat were still saying they thought it was funny. So good for them. Okay, so let me get
I
to some of
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
yeah.
So thanks.
Well, I had to do it for educational purposes because we haven't quite had somebody like him before, but I actually have a deep dive coming up on both him and Fran Drescher. Fran Drescher is really dialed into like the UN actually, if you didn't know.
I did not know.
So she's got crazy Hollywood ties. There are so many big question marks around her. I don't know how a guy like Shiva, so if they're married,
Are they
uh,
still married?
no. I think they got
Okay.
divorced a while ago. Although she made I've been deep diving Fran Drescher. She made some weird comments about a friend with benefits. I don't know if she's still talking about him or not, but in the past few years, she didn't name drop him in a while. I don't know if that's coincidental that and she was also like the president of SAG. So she's really dialed into Hollywood. For her to be married to Shiva, like, is that a coincidence? I don't know if that's a coincidence. And I don't know what happened with because before he ever met her, he seemed to be very grounded.
Hmm.
And then and obviously you know a lot of the CIA operations and CIA operatives, Operation Mockingbird, all of that. Like a lot of Hollywood operatives, their whole job is to compromise individuals. So I'm just thinking perhaps that's what happened to Shiva.
Seems to be a lot of that going on these
Yeah.
days.
All right, let me get to more of my questions here. So, okay, your single defining moment was the P900. Okay. Uh, if you could only list one reason on why you dedicate so much of your time to flat Earth, why would that be?
Because I had a podcast called Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole um, before this, and it was looking into all the other deceptions, like the thing that happened in New York in the month of September, the marathon in Boston, and even the other things that happened in Connecticut. And I was waking people up to that, but people go right back to sleep. And then when Flat Earth came around, I realized when you wake someone up to Flat Earth, it literally unlocks them from the matrix, and then they start seeing everything. And I realized that this world is not going in a good direction, and people are just ready to head into those 15-minute cities. And I wanted a future for myself, for my kids, and I think that flat Earth is the key. Once you understand where you are, if you don't know that we're in a spiritual war, if you think you're an insignificant speck flying through an infinite universe, you are disconnected from your true creation. So that's why I do it. And I think that flat Earth is the key. And I say we live in this living system, and we have this incredible connection. And when we raise our consciousness, which I think they've purposely lowered with a fake, electrical ether, if you will, that are hiding the true vibrations of this world, like the Schumann resonance. I think the old architecture and everything used to amplify it, and they've put a synthetic layer over it to hide it from us. So if you don't know who you are, where you are, you're literally giving up your ability to live to your full potential. So this is the analogy I have. So we are these incredible spiritual connected beings, but if you put a globe on, it literally disconnects you, puts you in a finite world, in a prison. And that's how I see it.
Actually, that reminds me, I think it was Mind Unveiled that did the episode on the top hats, on how the
Yeah,
top
the
hat.
top hats.
Yeah. And I actually have a deep dive coming up on clowns, which one of my biggest coincidences, why does clown sound exactly like clone? And I just can't, that's one of the ones I just can't get over.
Have you looked into the Nephilim were
Yes.
clowns?
Yeah. That's what
Have you?
prompted a lot of my research.
That's wild stuff.
Yeah.
That's in the Tartaria section on the app for anyone that
I
wants.
think, but I just think there's a major connection to clones and clowns
There might
and
be
of,
the
yeah,
Nephilim were clowns. There you
yep.
go.
Yeah, that's it. There's just something weird about clowns, right?
You know what? I get it. Yeah. There's something weird about everything. It's like this world. You know what's great when you wake up to this stuff, you're never bored. I haven't said that in a
Yeah,
while. Never bored. Never,
that's
ever,
true.
ever bored.
That
Ever.
is true.
Like, no, you have insomnia. Great. You get some friggin' extra time to research. Okay. You're
Yeah.
in the woods. That's not just a rock ridge. That's something else.
Well, that's one of the reasons I think logic and reason and psychology, like I always call for everybody, I mean, it's like the trifecta. If logic, reason, and psychology, because with psychology, you want to understand why you believed what you believed before, why you believe what you believe now, and why you may or may not be experiencing cognitive dissonance on new ideas. Because people are usually too scared to examine their own belief system, right? Like in all of your conversations with globe earthers, how often do people take pause and say, wait a second? Like honestly, and say, wait a second, you might be onto something. Like, how often does that happen?
Never. Globers will never change their mind, and they accuse us of never changing our mind. We were globers. We changed
Yeah,
our
that's yeah.
we
I mean,
changed our
that's
mind.
that. There are so many. It's almost. This is why I came up with my initial theory of the flat Earth psyop doesn't have anything to do with the shape of the Earth, whether it's a globe, whether it's flat, whether it's whatever. It seems like they're intentionally putting forth the dumbest arguments possible to create as many. I don't know if you remember, that was my initial theory when I first started looking, because I couldn't believe that they were like, there were PhDs out there, like even, somewhere on with Mark Sargent, whatever. They were putting forth the dumb. And when Bill Nye says you would see London from New York if the Earth was flat, as if precipitation would cease to exist. Like this guy's pretending he's never seen a weather report with a visibility index. He's never heard of fog. I mean, can you imagine a dumber argument than that? It's just, it's almost like it has to be on purpose, right?
Maybe he's just that dumb. Maybe.
It's hard to believe. Like I have to commit a fallacy and appeal to incredulity. It's hard to believe that someone could be that dumb, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. So okay, so the main reason is actually you're basically saying you want to help people achieve their full potential.
I'll be selfish. I want to help myself. Okay. But I do, yes, I want to help people. Nothing makes me happier than when someone says, thank you. Thank you for waking me up. I was lost, And I also think that depression comes when your soul, your true immortal self is trying to talk to your conscious mind that's lost in the heliocentric sauce, can't hear. Your soul gives up. And that's when depression comes in. And depression leads to all other sorts of abuse. And I've seen it happen many times when people wake up to flat Earth, they literally rise up out of depression. They get off of their their pharmaceuticals and they find a new thrill. I mean, like life is amazing right now. Life's hard and amazing. It's amazing. And I wouldn't want it any other way. So I love when people wake up. That's it.
Well, I actually think this is a very interesting answer because when you look at the people you debate, their goal is to reaffirm their belief system, which is literally putting money in the pockets of the corrupt who oppress people. Just from a moral standpoint, it's actually kind of interesting.
There's
Just taking a
Stockholm
step
syndrome.
back and looking at the motivations between the flat earth, because people are saying, okay, flat earthers are that was one of the silliest arguments. Joe Rogan brings it up. They're making money off ad clicks. Like, does Joe Rogan not understand that the establishment is making trillions more? So if the metric is how much money you're making, whether you're telling the truth or not, then clearly the people making more money would be lying. It's like he doesn't. I don't know if he's that stupid though. What's your opinion on Joe Rogan?
So he was the poster boy for we faked the moon landing, and there's no way you're going to convince me otherwise, right?
Have you seen my episodes on that?
I don't remember. Maybe.
I did one on EMF radiation where the EMF frequency is identical to to studio lighting in a museum. Like I used the work. I mean, there's plenty of people doing this work. I called it one of the smoking guns because the EMF radiation, you can tell whether the lights are artificial or not. And the lights on the moon landing are artificial. They're giving off artificial frequencies.
You can measure the frequency from the video.
So basically, if you look at the images, this one guy, I forgot his name, he actually is an anti-conspiracy theorist, by the way. He's the one that found this. So
Okay.
he was playing around with the EMF data on images. So the only thing that's sketchy is if you're filming a screen, it won't work. But if you look at the actual images, like for example, he used images taken from like from the Hubble telescope or whatever, from telescopes, and that like he compared the natural lighting of stars or the sun to the moon, to images of the moon landing, like the high res direct, not the video that's filming off the screen, because you wouldn't be able to tell off of that, but the actual high res images they allegedly took. So if you check out my Apollo, the Apollo moon landing series, I have 3 episodes. I also time the audio transmission, the claimed raw video. So you can calculate how much time it would take. And even that's a problem because the transmitter would have to be like the size of a skyscraper. And they supposedly have this tiny little transmitter that's transmitting live. I also went into in episode 3, they claim, so they sent high resolution, full color images from the moon to Earth in several different streams. They had a microwave transmission as well. And I just compared it to the previous ones that were only a year or 2 prior. They were barely able to do it from like a ship at sea to a city. And then supposedly they're doing it from the moon. So that was episode 3. There's a lot of smoking guns there that people haven't seen before. I've also been going through the transcripts. I have episode 4 coming with another smoking gun. Supposedly there was an orange juice spill through the suit. So you could see how that could be a problem. And that's on the live transcript.
Yeah.
But sorry to interrupt you.
I have a
Continue with
question
Joe
for you
Rogan.
on the moon missions. How did they stir their tang? How did they get the powder out of the bottle?
Okay, you can't. I don't know how they did anything because none of that makes any sense when you actually like go point by point. I think part of a psyop is they took some things like some of the shadows, some of them maybe could be explained because they did have the additional light. I mean, one of my arguments was when you adjust for exposure, in order to see the suits, you would have to adjust to such a point where the surface of the moon would white out the whole everything. You wouldn't be able to see anything. Because, you've used cameras. When something is that bright, once you adjust the exposure, you wouldn't be able to see anything. So how did they get any of the footage? It just, when you do a point by point breakdown, most of the people arguing or debating the moon landing, they don't use any of like the points I use because they use all of these somewhat ambiguous, not you, but, on some of these mainstream debates, they're talking about like different directions of shadows. If the lander had a light, if they had an extra light, the shadows I think are the least like I don't know if you could really I don't care about the shadows because there's like a million other things that don't make any sense that you wouldn't be able to do, like the transmission. The transmission is one of the biggest issues. How are they going to transmit that signal live over that distance? It's never been done before. To transmit live news, they're running cables to the cable truck. Like I put
And they have
images of that.
giant transmitters and huge power
Yeah,
sources.
that's today. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the 60s and in the landing that allegedly happened last year, they couldn't even get any kind of image, let alone high. Can you believe they had high resolution color images in from the moon allegedly, but they can't even get a low res in 2024? They couldn't even do a black and white in 2024. So those are the arguments that I find more interesting. But yeah, we kind of got into the weeds with the moon landing a little bit. But yeah, back to Joe Rogan.
So Joe Rogan, he was, there's no way that you can convince me that the moon landing was real. That was his thing.
Yeah.
Then he went on vacation, came back with a massive TV contract and,
Yep.
tens of millions, if not $100 million. He interviewed Neil deGrasse Tyson. He wore an NASA jumpsuit. And he's like, oh, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. And he literally flipped back. Now, is that proof? I don't know. It's highly suspect. But now it seems years later, he's kind of flipping back a little bit. He's making.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think, it's just my guess is they're like, yeah, everyone knows the moon landing's fake at this point. Might as well build some credibility and work your way back right now because everyone knows the moon landing was fake, right? Pretty much. How about do you see this? This is the ISS feed. See this line?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
It's amazing, amazing.
That's
but
funny.
That's fine. That's just the way the camera works, right?
No, that's that. I don't know what the explanation would be on that.
Yeah.
That is just wow. That's just stitched together, I guess.
Yep.
It looks like something they stitched in like maybe the 30s when they were first starting with like the matte screens and all that. But even back then, I don't remember seeing anything this sloppy. It's in some of the really old movies. Okay, what do you think about Alex Jones?
Well, I must be a shill because I got on a show twice or three times now, right? Because some people say that if you're on Alex Jones' show, then you're a shill because no one else gets on there. Well, that's not true. I got on there and I'm not a shill, but I guess I'm the only one that knows that.
Well, we know that's not true because Steven Seagal was also on his show.
Is Steven Seagal a shill?
No, there's no way he's a shill.
Okay, I don't even. I mean, I know him from a couple of movies.
I have the most extensive Steven Seagal deep dive, over 25 hours.
Oh, nice.
He actually was the first. People don't know this. He was the first mainstream guy to blow the whistle on CIA drug trafficking.
Okay.
In the 80s, yeah.
All right, so I've forgotten about him. So is he a gatekeeper in some things? Absolutely. I think and again, I have no proof of anything. I think he gets a phone call once in a while. Hey, don't touch this topic and this topic. Go ahead, do everything else. But if you touch those topics, things aren't going to go good for you. Maybe. I mean, that's how, if it wasn't for Alex Jones, I wouldn't have woken up to the first place, to the deep inside the rabbit hole stuff I was doing. Alex Jones was the first person, one of the first people that woke me up. And so is he a shill? I don't know. I think my opinion is he's got a huge ego. He's definitely more concerned about selling products, and he's exposed a lot of things. Has he made conspiracy theorists look really stupid at times? Yep, absolutely. Maybe I have also at some times. I don't know. I don't know if he's a shill.
Do you think he's Bill Hicks?
No, I don't think so. And that makes me a shill because everyone's right. Because if you don't think he's Bill Hicks, because I was standing next to him, Bill Hicks was like a foot taller than him, or at least 6 inches taller. So I don't know how can they make somebody shorter or taller.
I'm assuming they can, but I think the main issue is, so they had the same manager. They're from the same place.
Oh, the evidence is amazing. The looks, the teeth, everything, right? But
did you see my my episode on it? I found
by the way, I go back and forth. If you ask me the question tomorrow, okay, I might say yes. I might say yes.
You didn't happen to ask him, did you?
I think I thought about asking him, but I did.
Just to see his reaction, because people have asked, and his reactions are very interesting, to say the least. I did a whole episode on it. I found this old clip of him and Joe Rogan, like a really old clip, where Joe Rogan is in complete disbelief of his age. And it's really funny the way Alex is handling the situation, because it appears they don't know they're being filmed, or that it's not going to be aired. Like it's some kind of candid footage backstage or something.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess, well, you reacted that way. Like there was just today, I was in the chat on some show that was calling everyone shills, like, come on the show. And I'm like, I'm not coming on. I need to rest my voice. I have another interview coming up in a couple hours. And they're like, oh, now you're a shill because nobody would ever say that. I'm like, have you listened to my interviews? Do you hear the problems I have with my voice half the time?
Like, well, here's,
so people just saying, because someone reacts that way, people react all different ways. I don't put a lot of weight into it, into some of those things.
Well, yeah, you need to establish a baseline. So you would need to know a reaction that he was definitely
Sure.
lying about. Since we don't necessarily have that, it's all conjecture. But it's
So,
interesting to analyze.
yeah, when I was there in his studio, he was doing his show. I could see what's going on in the back office. I could see Daria, his assistant, what she was doing. She's a friend of mine. There was no shillery going on. They were just literally trying to get the news out. And then they had us on, and they're like, gatekeeper, we can say that maybe, because he's like, I don't want to talk about flat Earth. We're like, what? Like, and so Eddie and I came up with a little plan, and it went better than I thought. He's like, interrupting worse than Shiva. But we got out a lot of information, and we woke up a lot of Infowars people.
Yeah, but did you listen to my analysis on that?
You analyzed my interview with him?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah, check it out. It's awesome. And
okay.
my impression was he was playing because he was laughing about it. I think he did it on purpose so you could get the information out. And
maybe
I think
I'll tell you, behind the scenes, in between commercials, we were, Eddie and I were both like, Alex, you're doing a great job. You're playing we're getting the information exactly what you were saying. And Alex was just smiling and nodding.
Yeah, I saw.
Denying it.
Yeah, those kind of micro expressions are really obvious. And to me, it seemed like he was intentionally there, because there's no way he's that dumb, because he was using the same arguments against you. Like, even when he said, there's no way all these people are in on it or something, he couldn't keep a straight face when he said that, because I actually I was pausing it. He couldn't keep a straight face when he was using some of those arguments with you guys.
Yeah. And, when I was on the first time, and then we had a conference shortly after that, and half his staff came. Half his staff, Gregory, Daria, a bunch of the other people, they all became flat earthers. They're all flat earthers. And,
oh, wow.
And Alex was obsessed with going to Antarctica and doing some sort of Antarctica crossing, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
And then all of a sudden, one day, the story is that he told the whole staff, no more talk about flat earth or you're fired. And then that was it.
Oh, wow.
So did he get a call? Did he just get tired of it? Is he getting too much heat? Are his sponsors threatening to leave? I don't know.
My guess would be is that he tried to get ahead of it because he knows he'll lose too much of his, because a lot of his audience are some of these older guys that they just don't want to deal with the topic. And they just, if he went full flat earth, I think he would lose a large percentage of his audience.
Well, we got a large, I don't know what percentage of his audience. There's a ton of people. I got more emails on that show than anything ever, because that was the day Trump got indicted. So we were literally the sitcom that comes after the Super Bowl. So we came in after that story, and it was their highest rated live segment ever in like 25 years.
Wow.
Okay. And so that was awesome. I mean, so God bless Alex Jones, Bill Hicks, whatever. God bless him, right? Because he's getting the word out. It's funny. He's got reach, because I literally left from there to the Austin airport. I'm in the airport, and 2 people recognized me from being on that show in the airport.
Well, in my opinion, he's absolutely the greatest thespian in modern times. I've never seen a more entertaining, better actor. Like, he can do any accent.
He's doing it all. Yeah.
He can play any character all at the drop of a hat. He can riff it all on the fly, improv style. I mean, it's incredible. I've never seen anybody like that.
Yeah. Well, are they still on the air? Like, they got shut down, but did they open
X,
up under?
No. They're still going on X. So the judge actually blocked their sale. It's really interesting what's going on. I've been covering Alex Jones for a while. The whole thing is fraudulent, obviously, because people who think he was found guilty by a jury, he was not. There was a default judgment because the judge asked him to provide. I mean, I don't know if he explained it to you. The judge asked him to provide all of the analytics on his Google account for his YouTube channel that they shut down, that he didn't have access to, and he couldn't provide it. So they ruled against it, which is illegal, because that's not to mention, in order for something to be defamation, there have to be damages. So all of those Connecticut parents, they would have to demonstrate that they either couldn't get a job because of what Alex said or whatever in order for it to be defamation.
Can I say something funny about, not funny, well, just interesting about those
Yeah.
parents? So all of the parents that lost their children that day, very sad, very, very sorry for them. Do you know the average age worldwide of people that have kids in first grade? The average age is something like 23 or 24, something like that, to 32, because you could have several kids.
Right.
That's the average. 95% of people with first graders are in that range. Do you know what the average age of the parents that lost kids
idea.
on that sad day?
No idea.
50.
That's curious.
It's never I think it was 50 or 47 or 52. I forget the number. It was right around 50, right? That's never happened anywhere ever in all of history in any society anywhere on earth, except that day in that class.
Well, also, have you seen my Columbine coverage?
No.
I have the most extensive Columbine. Eddie Bravo actually contacted me about going on his podcast for Columbine. So Columbine, needless to say, did not happen as advertised on the idiot box. It could have been a whole MK Ultra operation.
I'm not even saying anything about what happened, what didn't happen. I'm just saying the average age of those parents was like almost 50. And then the other thing is, that the Sandy Hook Choir sang at the Super Bowl to honor all of those poor children that were murdered, right? And
Yeah,
they sang Jennifer Hudson at the Super Bowl. Do you know that all of those kids are missing?
I know that they refused to give their names.
Every single kid has never been seen again.
Yeah, that's strange.
Is it weird?
Obviously, the narrative for the incident in Connecticut is exactly as advertised, or perhaps even more people died. Perhaps there were hundreds more deaths, and if you don't believe it, you're a denier.
Right.
There could have been hundreds that died. How dare anybody deny?
I don't know. I don't know. It's just so weird.
Mark told me that Alex didn't actually change his opinion on that incident. Did you talk to Jones about it? Did he change his opinion or no?
I think that entire trial was just a thing to scare people from talking about false flags incidents.
Yeah,
that's what it was. And how much Alex was in on it, I don't know. Maybe he was just a helpless puppet in it, or maybe he was a participating player. I couldn't tell you.
Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is Bill Cooper. Are you familiar with Bill Cooper?
Oh yeah, I listened to Bill Cooper.
So he was, for some reason, he was very anti Alex Jones. And yeah, because Bill Cooper was, so there was one of the most interesting things that people say, well, how come this guy's still alive? Well, Bill Cooper's not alive. Bill Cooper's not alive. So, because
I heard
people
Bill
say,
Cooper
well,
was Alex Jones now.
If anything Alex Jones said was true, he'd be dead. And then with Bill Cooper, you can't say that, right?
Right.
So maybe Bill Cooper was onto something.
Well, Bill Cooper said that Osama bin Laden was going to crash planes into buildings in New York.
Yeah, even said, write your congressman that you don't believe it and to release the full story. Like, he was very vocal about that. I did a deep dive on Project Bluebeam where I went over Bill Cooper and even his demise, where it was similar to Ruby Ridge, where there was some kind of entrapment situation where there were guys parked, by his property like hours before the shootout. I don't know if you know about all that, but they were definitely trying to get him to create a situation. And it seems like this is kind of like a common thread that the coincidence theorists always ignore, where why would the government be trying to entrap people? Well, why are they not out there solving actual crimes? Like, why are they trying to entrap people? Like the Ruby Ridge, anybody who's still pro-government after Ruby Ridge, you got to question those people. Because I don't know if you know the full Ruby Ridge story, but they tried to get him to buy a shotgun that was like 1 inch cut outside of regulate. Like this is what the FBI is doing with their time. Not that he's already a criminal and they're trying to catch him. They're trying to get him to buy a non-regulation shotgun. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's amazing what they've done to the world. I mean, look at the JFK drops. Nobody cares.
Do you think a lot of that? So I was going to cover that. And I haven't had time to go through all of it. It seems like a lot of that is intentional disinfo in those drops.
Maybe.
And the other person I wanted to go over was, two more people. David Icke. Did you get a
Okay.
chance to talk to him?
Well, David Icke was virtual in Acapulco, but his son Gareth was there, and Gareth is awesome.
Is he a flat earther?
Yeah, well, he had me on, and he couldn't deny anything I was
Oh, I
saying. So,
didn't know that. I got to check that out.
yeah, he's I was on his show last year, I think, I forget. And then David Icke, when David Icke first started talking about everything he's talking about, everyone just laughed at him. I think everything he's talking about is kind of coming true. So
Even the interdimensional reptilian shapeshifters?
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm not ruling anything out these days.
Yeah. And then Serge Monast, the OG that nobody talks about, the Canadian conspiracy theorist that preceded Bill Cooper. Bill Cooper got a lot of his stuff from Serge Monast. I did an episode on him as well. And he also, Serge Monast it's scary. His predictions are scary. He predicted the whole trans agenda back in the 80s or even earlier. Supposedly, he got his information from some kind of French Freemasons in the 60s. And then all of a sudden, he spends a night in jail. The next day, he goes home and drops dead. And so that's another guy who's no longer alive. But he also is the supposed originator of the Project Bluebeam, which is also something I wanted to ask you about. That kind of ties into, I think it ties into flat Earth.
It certainly does. Project Bluebeam, they're projecting cities into the sky, like in China and stuff. So they can do amazing stuff. And I don't know if you heard my thing with Marty Leeds, where we believe, and I'm not hanging my hat on it, but if they ask me, like, hey, I'm going to tell you the truth on what happened in Antarctica when the TFE trip went down, I think they faked the sun in the sky, and I think it could easily be done. The Microsoft has technology to transmit plasma balls into thin air, not a screen, no smoke needed, nothing, that bring light and heat. But if you think about it, in Antarctica, planes flying in Antarctica have to fly like below 10,000 feet. That's weird. And
What do you mean they have to?
well, when
That's
they
the
fly in, they
regulation?
fly in low. Yeah,
Oh,
they fly
wow.
low, and at the same latitude in the north, they're at 30,000 feet. And in the 1959 Encyclopedia Americana, it says that the dome ceiling at 80 degrees south is at 13,000 feet. So, we had some NASA whistleblowers, and looking at all the old cosmology, they talk about if there's a dome, there's like plasma below it. One NASA whistleblower said that there's plasma, then it turns into water, and then it becomes thicker, and it becomes solid. So projecting a ball into that looks like a sun, I think it's personally possible. And without mentioning anything specific, somebody that works at Microsoft saw some stuff about NASA people there and all sorts of stuff that they were doing, that I can't talk about because it'll lead back to them. So it's to think that technology doesn't exist. You're insane. It's not.
Yeah.
So I personally think that they fake that sun down there.
So just for reference on tech, anybody that's been studying any kind of conspiracies and technology, it's been said that military tech is at least 50 years ahead of civilian tech. So with all of the civilian projection tech, that's really not surprising in any way that could be done.
And if it was done, the one guy in the world that is qualified, the most qualified person in the world, would be the one of the top guys at Microsoft. He happened to be vacationing with his wife in Antarctica at that time. Just weird. That's a coincidence. Just a coincidence.
Of course. I mean, Antarctica is practically Cancun for trips nowadays, right? It's all coincidental.
Yes. Right. So again, again, I know, not even pushing that hard. Like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to prove it. Are they faking the sun down there? Was there some sort of anomaly? Was there a second sun? Was there what was this something? Right. Personally, I think they faked it because no one's ever filmed it before until a bunch of propped up Globers go down there in a deceptive,
I one of my things with Antarctica, I think Austin brought this up too, but I did an episode on Antarctica. It's beyond belief. It stretches credulity too far to believe that after decades and decades and decades of full-time year-round scientists, Not one of them has a webcam that's just going to leave it on for 24 hours.
No. There are webcams, and they cut out the 10 hours. You know that. You've seen that.
No, I'm talking about like private. I'm talking about just not the official webcams. I'm talking about just random guys. Like, let's say a gamer, right? They're
Yeah.
scientists that play games. They have webcams. They're not just going to turn it. And I'm talking about like a cheap like a cheap webcam. They could just point it out the window, like not as part of an official one.
At this point, they can do that because if they are faking the sun, who knows, they'll fake it. Here's the funny thing is TFE, and I really hate talking about it, but I think we need to address it a little bit here. TFE was designed specifically for me. I was the one that was supposed to go. This is a massive operation, right up there with the moon landing. I was supposed to go because I'm waking up too many people. This app is waking up too many people. It's bringing people together. They don't want that to happen. And so they want to take down the map and they want to take down me. And so like, oh, free trip to Antarctica. And I said, immediately I saw right through this. I'm like, it's a false dichotomy. I want nothing to do with you. Don't ever email me again. You're a demon. Hit the road. Right. And so what they did is they had their people contacting every influencer in my life. Now, I've been speaking at Anarchapulco in February. This is back 6 months before. They're calling the heads of Anarchapulco and all the people there going, Dave Weiss was offered a free trip to Antarctica. He turned it down. You should let him speak at your conference. You should convince him to go. You should convince him to go. They tried everything. And then when I wouldn't go, they're like, okay, we're going to go to the next on the list. It's Jaren. And Jaren goes, well, I'm not going unless Austin goes. He goes, okay, Austin will go. And he goes, well, if the sky is hazy, I'm going to say that doesn't count because maybe you can project something into the haze. And Will Duffy goes, if it's not crystal clear blue sky, it's a win for flat Earth. How often is the sky blue in Antarctica? Do you know the answer?
Because I have no idea. I've never been
there. The sun did not show at that place where they went at whatever the name of the base was for 2 or 3 months. It hadn't shown its head once. And then the day they got there, it was 9/11 blue. Okay. So there's so much evidence. And then again, Will Duffy is in trouble with the law, with FINRA, and has SEC charges against him. He's got over $1 million in fines up against him. He's paid $500,000 already, and he could have possible jail time. But the only thing that matters to him is settling the flat Earth debate. Are you kidding me? He's dedicated his whole life to it, even though he should be worried about going to jail and losing all of his money.
I'm more interested in what was going on with Jaren and Austin because Jaren always struck me like he doesn't look that smart, but he actually was pretty sharp in a lot. Like if you watch some of my earlier analysis, just again, don't judge a book by its cover, but I mean, we all kind of naturally do that. But when he kept getting in all these zingers and making all these great points, like I was really surprised at how sharp Jaren was. So it doesn't make sense that the movement of the sun would somehow invalidate all of these dozens of other things.
You have to remember the movement of the sun comes with all of the other heliocentric garbage, which we don't have enough time to go through. It has to be, hydrogen and helium can create balls with gravity in space that burn 640 billion tons a day for billions of years and never get smaller, right? You have to believe the whole moon and
but didn't Jaren
sizes, temperature, refraction, everything.
But wasn't Jaren himself part of some of these laser tests and these long range photography?
Absolutely. And he's the mirror test, the mirrors that can't refract over. He knows all the arguments. And now he's going out he went to Skeptic Con or whatever. And he was on stage talking. And the argument he brought up is something that's been debunked for years. I mean, the star rotation clockwise versus counterclockwise. And, and he's like, I don't know anyone in the South could ever become a flat earther. Here's the other thing. I don't know what happened to Jaren, but this is not organic. And one text message that he sent when he first said he was flipping, one of our guys, I'm not going to mention his name, not that it matters, said, Jaren, hey, we should talk. And Jaren texted back, I've gotten myself into a situation and I don't know what to do. No need to talk. That's the last coherent thing that has ever come out of his mouth. Okay. And I don't know, to me, that sounds like he's in some trouble.
Now, Austin never actually, he was making fun of people who think that the TFE proved a globe. So I don't know. It seemed like he did not, it seemed like if he were to be compromised, unless he's more of a long game kind of guy, but he just seems, I don't know. He seems too smart.
I don't think Austin's compromised. I think at worst, at best, he's just trying to deal with, he's got a new baby. He's just dealing with family issues, and it's a lot of stress, and there's financial issues that go on with it. And that's a lot to deal with. And I can understand why he's kind of stepped back from the scene, because the whole community turned on him. He's a shill. You knew it from the start. You went into an Amazon studio, all a bunch of nonsense like that. And even though it's fake,
Yeah.
they didn't fly into a friggin' Amazon studio or a sphere like Vegas, right? And that makes me a bad guy. That makes, oh, you're defending TFE. No, I'm not. I'm defending stupid arguments against TFE, which was already stupid. So that's the most likely scenario. A bad scenario would be that maybe he got spoken to and said, like, hey, if you speak up, your friend Jaren is going to be in deeper trouble or whatever. I have no idea. I can only speculate. I don't even want to speculate. I been trying to talk to Austin for a couple months, and the only message I get from him is that he's busy with family stuff.
So Mark Sargent offered to go?
He might have been on the list, but Mark saw right through at the beginning. Mark and I are the first ones to call out TFE, and I told everyone, don't go. And Jaren and Austin were like, you know what? Like, we'll go. I don't care if this guy's a bad guy or anything. We're going to go. We're going to report what we see. Right now, was he in on it already? Was he something happened? I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Doesn't make me a bad guy. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody's asked you about this guy, but one of the sharpest guys out there was Flat Earth Jake. And for some reason, he has it out for just about everybody, I think.
Oh, everybody, yeah, because he got psyoped by a guy called Cool Hard Logic that said that the circling map doesn't work, and with a really stupid argument. And he's a horrible dude, and he calls himself a different name now.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I don't pay any attention to him,
because I think I believe, unless I'm mixing up people, because early on he was doing his own observations and tests, and they were pretty good.
He thinks that the AE map is debunked. Just today, the date we're recording this, what day is it? Sunday. I just released Space Busters gave me wanted me to upload their new Antarctica video it's showing about all what is it called? Now I'm trying to remember the name of it. Showing all the videos that all of the bases. All of the bases that were it's called Scamartica 2. It's on my Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac channel. And he basically shows all of the data on how it absolutely proves the Gleason's map. Let me just find this little spot. He showed that where the bases are, and he looking up the exact latitude, there's always like a little outlet right where it's supposed to be. Like everywhere where they say a base is, it goes right to where it's supposed to be. It's absolutely a fantastic video. And he's got another one coming out right here. This one here, this base at this latitude, you need this little outlet, otherwise it would be in the water. And on the globe, it would be in the water.
Right.
We're looking at the official lengths and everything, and the sunrise and the sunset. He did an amazing job. Another globe killer. Finished. It's finished. But they want you to believe that that flat Earth is finished when in fact these bases actually fit exactly where they're supposed to go on Gleason's map, and on the globe map doesn't work.
So you think, just to continue with that, so you what's the allegation here that all of these countries, which is, I mean, that is a curiosity that this is the only unbroken treaty. I mean, humans can't agree on anything.
Right.
I mean, look at what's going on with the Russia-Ukraine situation back and forth. So that is curious. So you think, I'm trying to think of like what we could say is logical. There must be string pullers above.
I don't even know if all of the countries would even need to know that the Earth is flat.
Oh, no. Just the main power. The powerful countries. Yeah. No, yeah. Some of these little tiny island nations, they might not know. They're worried about having enough food, so they might not know. But yeah, so there must be some kind of string pullers. So are you of the mindset that that there's all these continents outside beyond the ice wall, and that for whatever reason, like if it's hard to really think about it. That's why the Satan's little season theory is so interesting, because it kind of explains a lot, doesn't it?
Let me tell you my view on more land. Okay. I think the Southern Ocean within our pond is bigger than they're telling us. Um, I don't know if the ice wall goes all the way around or not. Maybe there's not an ice wall. Maybe there's not. Maybe the more land go out there. But I don't know if there's more land. I don't know what's above us, but it is good to look at information and speculate and not make any solid claims. Just like, hey, this could be it. Look at the old books, the Iron Republic, the Smoky God. There's all talk about more lands beyond Antarctica. And then the biblical people, I don't know why they get so they're like, well, you can't have more land because that's not what God says. God says the firmament, touches down in Antarctica or whatever. What if did God tell you what size the Earth was? What if it's 1,000,000 miles past 60 degrees south in all directions? And that's where the dome is. That's where the firmament is. That leaves a lot of room. That leaves a lot of room. Okay. Yeah. And so I think more land doesn't go against the Bible. Okay. And I also think the more land is very probable, but I don't know. And again, there doesn't need to be more land. People, well, the dome flat Earth is a prison just like the globe. Let me ask you a question. What kind of prison would it be if you spent every day of your entire life going to a different place, having different experiences, and you couldn't cover the whole world in 5 lifetimes? That doesn't sound that like much of a prison to me.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go someplace new every day for 5 lifetimes.
Yeah, it's really tough. There's the scale you have to think. A lot of obviously in through my psychology podcast, I talk about how mental weakness that's one of the biggest issues, more so than intelligence. Because you don't have to be that smart to understand some of these concepts. But if you're mentally weak, you're not even going to want to try, because you need what I call coincidence theorists. They need their safety blanket of authorities to tell them what everything is, so they don't have to think about it for themselves. So they need their blankie. But if to overcome that mental weakness, you can start to open your mind and think, okay, well, if everything's not as advertised, now you can start to really think about some theories here. The reflection of the Earth in the moon, I think, is very interesting, especially the cycles. I think you brought that up before, where
Yeah.
where the solar cycle is going to warm a different part of the Earth. So we're going to get within the next however many 100 years. Yeah, there you go. We
Yeah.
might have, so the current continents might all get covered by ice, and we might have to live on other continents.
So like the 26,000 years, so 13,000 years, the sun will be circling over here. The North Pole will be here, and the sun would circle around and melt out this area. That's a possibility. The looking at the moon map, at first I was like, they're reaching. It doesn't really matter. There's amazing similarities.
The
And now,
first thing I did when I
yeah,
saw the moon map, I went outside. I believe it was on a close to full moon day.
yeah,
And I looked at the map and I looked at the moon myself, and I was just like, no way. Because it lines up.
yeah. Um, and then the Prague clock, right? If you look at the Prague clock,
Yeah.
yeah, it has this whole cycle on it. And they changed the inside of the Prague clock now, which had a kind of like a flat Earth looking map on it. It now has a globe, right? That's just
Well,
a coincidence,
you know what
right?
else is kind of funny? A globe, like that globe, you could say that that's like a globe could be a flat Earth. Like if you extend, like on a snow globe, if you have a dome on the bottom, you could have a flat Earth globe. So like
Well,
in terms,
that's like the what I showed you earlier, the toroidal
yeah,
field.
similar. So a lot of these representate, yeah, yeah. So when some of these, because there are certain ancient diagrams of Earth that are more closer to that, and people think that that must mean that it's a spherical Earth, not necessarily. So there's many different ways to interpret all of that. It's all very fascinating, and I think it's very telling. One of the last things we could talk about, this is one of the scariest theories, I think. The NPC theory, which one of the side theories that I brought this up a long time ago, and the author is slipping my name. It's something like, it's something like Savitor, I believe is the name of the author. He wrote a short story called The Perfect Soul. And it's not super new. I mean, it's probably 10, 20 years old now at least. And in this short story, a father discovers that every generation of people's souls are diluted to the point where eventually the people walking around have no souls. And it terrified him. So, do you think a lot of these NPCs, and this is kind of related, supposedly over 50% of people don't have an internal monologue. Some people think an internal monologue it's like you're talking to yourself, but is it also some kind of voice from a divine voice or your higher self or whatever, telling you what's right and wrong or, conscience related or kind of guiding you through life. And supposedly over 50% of people don't have that.
I think that might, I mean, because their souls are diluted or because they're on psychotropic drugs or they're too lost in, the news, which is steering your mind. Um, I think that their bodies are so poisoned and so toxic that their soul is unable to communicate with them. But the whole diluted soul thing, that's interesting. It definitely appears like, I say we live in a soul system, a system made for souls to have experiences. NASA wants us to live in a soul lure system where they could try to steal our souls and take control of us. I think we're in a spiritual war, and I think that soul possession is a real thing. So, who knows what's going on? When somebody gets really down, really low, really scared, really desperate, they could give up control over their body to a demonic spirit. I said it.
Yeah. No. I think there's definitely a lot to it, regardless of what you call that experience. But yeah, it seems like a lot of that's going on. I was kind of getting at, part of the Tartaria theory, you have those orphan trains. Are those survivors of the old world, and that's people with souls? And are the grown Cabbage Patch Kids clones or whatever, are those the NPC soulless ones? Do
I
you have
don't
any
know.
opinion on that?
I that's a rabbit hole. I have it on the Tartaria page. There is on the
Yeah,
bottom. There is a Cabbage Patch section, and that stuff is wild.
it is.
The more I look into it, the more I just like throw my hands up. Like that's why I won't rule out anything David Icke says at this point, because this place is one thing we could say for sure. It's not what we all were taught it was. That's for sure.
What do you think of the next World Fair going on?
It's going on in Dubai, right? And then there's
Um,
one that the Trump wants to do one here.
I think there's more than one. Are they scheduled for around 2028 or so?
Something like that. Trump wants to do a 6 month World Fair in Iowa. I'm not sure where it is. Don't quote me on that. And it's all about a technocratic future. It's going to be the 15-minute cities. People are going to love it. Did you hear the theory? Remember the guy that had the Tesla truck that blew it up in front of a building? He went in a
Yeah.
building up. There's people are now saying that, and I don't know what, I didn't see the evidence myself, that he was locked in his car. It drove there on itself and exploded.
Oh, wow. Would that surprise anybody though?
That
You
makes
know what's
more
kind of
sense than him
crazy?
doing it.
You know what's kind of crazy? Post post 2020 event, there are still people who are willing to write off absolutely everything as coincidence. Isn't that crazy?
It's absolutely crazy,
I mean,
right? And just not to take a not to take it down a dark place, but what do you think of the Deagle report?
which one is that?
The Deagle report was in 2017. It does predictions. It monitors like military contracts, world population, gross
Oh,
national product,
okay. Yeah, I remember
and
that.
then America,
Yeah,
UK,
yeah,
Canada
yeah.
are
Okay.
all
Yeah,
dropping by 70%
yeah,
this
yeah.
this year.
So wasn't so I believe even Bill Cooper, Serge Monast, I think all those guys approximated that as well. I don't know if they had an exact year, but they said this very similar things. And then you could even go to some of those old prophecies like Fatima's prophecy and some of those old prophecies from 100, 200 years ago, they're all pretty much in sync.
Yeah. So that just reminded me. So remember the movie I Am Legend? Do you know
Yeah.
this story?
Yeah.
You know
Which,
where I'm going?
no,
I Am Legend with Will Smith, where he's
right.
the sole survivor, right? He's the sole survivor after everybody died from a vaccination thing,
Yeah.
right? So the premise of the story was mumps broke out, and they gave everybody a pokey poke, and then everybody got cancer. So then they came up with an MR and
Yeah.
the not applicable thing, V for everybody to get rid of the cancer, and they V'd everybody, and then everybody died except Will Smith because he was immune. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the premise of the movie. So there's a news in the movie. You have a black woman with long straight black hair, dark coat, interviewing a blonde woman wearing a black polka dotted shirt. And she's the one, and the blonde woman was the one telling about the technology, and she was the doctor, and there was the newscaster. Okay, just a couple of weeks ago, there was a newscast about the new MRN
Oh, wow.
that they're doing, and it was of the same woman, the same clothing, same dress, polka dotted dress.
Obviously, that's a coincidence.
It's just a coincidence, right? So is it revelation of the method? Is it programming us? Is it laughing at us? I don't know. It is wild though.
All of the above, I would guess, because this is something I bring up for the coincidence theorists, and I brought this up on my predictive programming podcast. Do you ever notice how none of these coincidences happen in super low budget, non-Hollywood movies?
None of them happen in super low budget non-Hollywood movies.
Right. Like if it's really that easy for like a writer to come up with something like that, like super ultra low budget, like like I used to watch a lot of horror movies. There are so many super low budget horror movies. Like I Am Legend is a huge Hollywood studio film. There's plenty of zombie movies that don't feature any coincidences or predictive programming. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So people that aren't part of the establishment, how come they're never able to come up with any of these scenes that end up happening?
Bruce, let me just share it. Let me show you the thumbnail of my where's my share screen? Share screen. Where's the share screen? More?
There should be, is it for me? It's a green button right in the middle at the
Yeah,
bottom.
Hold on, let me make this bigger. So this is, there it is. Share window, and yeah. So can you see that? Can you see it?
Yeah, yeah, I can see it.
Is it sharing? It's sharing?
Yep.
So on the top is the movie, right? The newscasters on the left, the girls on the right. No, that's the news 2025. On the bottom, I Am Legend.
Yeah, that's funny.
Having the exact same conversation.
I guess the coincidence theorist would say though that in the top one she's wearing a red dress, and on the bottom, I Am Legend, the lady has longer, her shoulders are covered. But
but it's the same premise. The blonde on the right with the polka dots. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Just throwing it out there. Kind of weird.
Yeah, it's just funny how because some of the coincidence theorists, their cope is if you watch enough movies, you'll find something like that in all of them, but they never find any of that in low budget non-Hollywood movies.
Interesting. Interesting.
I mean, I don't know how many low budget movies you've watched, but like super indie, like super low budget movies, like direct to video, independently produced, they never have scenes like that. You won't find anything like that. It's only Hollywood movies that for some reason must be that movie magic.
Amazing. Anything else you want to talk about?
Let me just check my list here. The only other, one more thing. Where do you see everything going in terms of, flat, not just you with flat Earth, but everything in general in about 5 years and the effect of the world the effect of all of this on the world moving forward?
Assuming we're still alive?
Yes.
I think that flat Earth is taking off. This whole TFE thing, they're doing everything they can to stop it, and I think it's just giving it more energy. No publicity is bad publicity. I think good publicity is better, but it is true that there's more and more people waking up. I can see it. I'm getting more people reaching out to me. I'm doing more interviews, and I think that when the truth is on our side, the truth always rises over the lies. So I think it's gonna. I think 5 years that I couldn't tell you what's going to happen in 5 years. I think this year there's going to be a massive, massive growth in flat Earth, and it depends on what the controllers want to do. At any point, they can flip the tables over, or they're going to try. So at least I think they can. Maybe they can't.
It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to realize, to truly see what's going on. But just the amount of awareness, to statism, scientism has exploded the past 5, 10 years, like never before. I mean, it's like a runaway train now. You can't stop it.
All right. I have two questions for you before
Yeah.
we end. What are the chances that David Weiss is a shill or an agent meant to take down flat Earth?
To take down flat Earth?
Yeah, to be a shill and to
Okay.
steer people away from flat Earth. What are the chances? Scientific.
Well, I can't assign percentages because I'd have to actually know exactly what you think and what you're gonna do. If you were a shill, I don't think you would be doing podcasts with channels with 3 subscribers and talking to random schools. And I mean, what's the point of that? A shill is going to be on mainstream only. Like if you were only on Alex Jones, people might think, they'd be a little bit more statistically, might be in a better position to say you're a shill if you only did mainstream.
So what are the odds? You want to give me odds like out of 10?
It's hard because it depends on what the end game is. If you're gonna, some people say the anti-Jaren people say that he was propped up from the beginning, and this is kind of what Flat Earth Jake was saying too, where he got in with what's his name? What's the comedian's name? Who did the Little Truther show or whatever?
Alex Stein.
Alex Stein. Yeah. Some people think he's controlled opposition, and Jaren got really buddy with him. So some people are saying that Jaren was kind of designed from the beginning to be a shill. Whereas
that makes me a sucker because the whole growing up, Alex used to call in to Monday Night Raw every week, and he was this annoying guy. And then one day Jaren goes, "Hey, we're going to invite Alex on the show." And I'm like, "Alex, the caller?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "What the hell are you doing that for?" And so it was totally organic, but Alex has his agenda.
Does he talk about flat Earth anymore or no?
He brings it up a little bit, but he's afraid to talk about it. He just wants to keep his job over there at wherever the network he's on. What's his name? I forget. I don't even know the name of it. On. Yeah.
So you think?
Yeah.
So okay.
Alex just wants to make money and be famous.
Yeah. So if you're not going to pull a 180, okay. There's 2 more variables here because you asked, so I have to give you a comprehensive answer because that's the only way I can answer.
You're not going to like my next question, but go ahead.
Okay. So it depends. So some people also, and in the Mindshock chat, there's 1 or 2 people who just keep bringing this up, and I know they're going to get mad if I don't bring it up.
Okay.
They say that your app has security issues and reveals the location of everybody all the time.
Yeah. So back in October, McToon and his cronies illegally broke into our server and they got in and they got everything. Okay. So what did they get? When you sign up for the app, it's not KYC. You don't have to verify your identity. You put in an email address. You put in your name. You put in a fake name. You put in whatever information you want to share with the other users. And you put in a password for your account. They got all of that. So they got your password, but they got the information that you put in there to share with the other users on the friend finder. So that's what they got. So they didn't really need to hack the app. They could have just paid the $3 and gotten all that information themselves, right? So we fixed that at great expense, and the app is going to be stronger and better than ever because of that. So there you go. It's not sharing, leaking, and you don't have to put anything in. You can turn off the friend finder. You can delete your own account. You can um, obscure your location completely. You can not put in any information. You don't have to fill out a profile. So again, it's like I went on Facebook, Bruce, and I got all your information that you put into Facebook for to share with me. So I hacked it. Okay.
When yeah,
So there
when you say you fixed it at great expense, you what do you mean you hired like
I
security?
hired a security team, and there it was at great expense. So again, that it was a necessary step for the app as it's getting bigger, and since we're now dealing with cryptocurrency on it and stuff, it's not a bad thing. So I can only thank those guys for
And
making me step up to the plate.
when was that done?
That was done in October.
Okay, so you're saying it's totally secure now.
Yes.
And have you done, I actually didn't check. Did you look into doing any kind of like independent verification of that, like
Yeah,
Trustpilot?
we're in the middle of that now. It's all
Okay.
being done. Yeah.
So there you go. And when do you expect that to get done?
I'm expecting that to be done this like before you air this podcast, actually.
Oh wow. Okay.
That should be done,
So
hopefully.
there you go for
Yeah.
those two commenters who kept bringing that up
Well,
nonstop.
listen, here's the agenda. We had Robbie Davidson who's put on the conferences, Patricia Steer, who left Flat Earth a while ago, and Paul on the plane who left Flat Earth a while ago. All three of them came back on the same day and flipped to the globe with the exact same talking points. And those talking points were the Gleason's map is dead, and the Earth is a globe because of the sun circling in Antarctica, right? And that's our talking point. So Patricia was actually asked, "Well, why is the Gleason map dead?" And she couldn't answer it. She goes, "No, it's just dead. It's just dead."
Wow.
So they all
That's
came
really
back on the
weird.
same day with the same.
Did Mark Sargent was kind of close to Patricia Steer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What did he have to say about that?
He's the same thing. He's like it. So we put it together. The three of them had a show on YouTube that was promoting a cryptocurrency, which was a scam. They probably didn't know it was a scam. Called Axion. So they had massive SEC violations,
Wow.
right? And then all of a sudden they shut down the show. And Robbie's like, Dave, you want to take any links off your website to Axion and everything, right? And a lot of people lost a lot of money. I lost $25,000. I sold 2.5 Bitcoins to buy Axion. I would have 2.5 more Bitcoins right now if I didn't buy Axion, which is now worth 0. Okay. So they have these charges hanging over their heads, and all of a sudden they all flip on the same day. What's the common denominator? I don't know what the story is. I don't know if they've been charged.
Maybe
It's weird.
maybe it's all maybe it's all coincidental.
It's coincidental. That's it.
I have one more.
It's funny that Will Duffy has new charges against him now in January. Back when he was doing this, he had $500,000 worth of fines. So and he's it's nothing. It's nothing. It's
one of my other questions to determine shill likelihood, if you don't mind answering, what were your parents' professions?
My mother was an artist and a stay-home mom, and she was watercolorist. And my father was in the printing industry. For that's probably all I remember him ever doing.
And was he based in a major city or no?
We all lived in Connecticut, and he worked in New Jersey. And then I went where I worked in the printing business a little bit, a different company than he did. I moved from a couple companies, and then I switched into the solar power business, and then I left that and doing this.
Were any of the companies he or you worked for BlackRock owned?
No, not that I know of. I mean, maybe they are now. Who knows?
Okay, so yeah, based on you actually, what's funny? When I analyze micro expressions, vocal intonations, and just general behavior, most shills do not quickly answer a question. They usually take a moment, pause, because they're trying to think of a way to explain it. You quickly answer, and just to be clear, people might not believe this. I did not submit any questions for you before the fact. Dave did not know any of what I asked him. He had none of these questions ahead of time. And everybody that's followed Mindshock knows that I always bring the receipts. Nobody has ever caught me on any lie ever because there hasn't been one. And so Dave had no access to any of these questions. Half of the questions I thought of on the spot. So he would not have been able to prepare for them anyway. So he didn't pause for any of those questions. Like, for example, the behavior I'd be expecting, like when I brought up, like, let's say Flat Earth Jake, there would be there would be an immediate reveal in micro expression and anger and etc. Dave did not have any of these. So again, there's no 100% way to say whether he's a shill or not. But if he is a shill, he would definitely be one of the all-time greats in being able to
All
be
right, so
that.
I'll give you the question this way. I have two envelopes. One of them has $100 in it, and and we're going to tell you the truth. If I'm a shill, you get the $100. No. One of them has $100 in it, and if I'm not a shill, you get the $100. The other one has $10,000 in it, and if I am a shill, you get that one.
Well,
which one do you pick?
I know I'm being annoying here, but that would depend on the time frame, right? Like how long? Because if you come out tomorrow,
no, my true intentions are going to come out right after you pick, and it's the actual truth. The actual truth is going to come out,
and that's going to be today, like right now. If
that's
that was
going to be right now after
second.
you say, yeah. So if you bet that I'm not a shill, you get $100. If you bet that I am a shill and you're correct, you get $10,000.
If we had a time limit of, let's say, 1 minute, I don't think you're going to come out and all of a sudden say the earth is a globe in 1 minute. I don't think you will.
No. So the truth is going to come out on my deep intentions for the long game. Hey,
right.
Dave's an agent and it's going to come out next year, whatever, and the truth is just going to be told. So you got your $100 and your $10,000.
So if you turn out to be a shill, do I have to return the 100?
Yes. I like that.
Okay, this is kind of tough. I mean,
next one's going to be tougher.
Oh, man. It's really hard to say. I would say you do not have any of the tells of a shill.
So you're gonna take the safe bet of $100.
If it was okay, so we have to add gun to the head because otherwise I don't think I would take any envelope.
I was trying not to do gun to the head, but now that you took that off the table, I'm going to use that for the next one. Okay. You ready?
If I have to, I'm
not even going to make you answer because I give up at this point. Okay. Here's the next one. This one you have to answer.
No, I'll say this. If I had to guess, I would guess based on what is known about the other shills, the other flat earth shills, I would guess you are not.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. Gun to your head. No other information. The truth is going to be known. The Nephilim are here. They're going to tell us the truth. Is the earth flat or a globe?
Well, which flat model and which globe model?
Okay, how about this? Is the earth a spinning globe in space, the heliocentric model, or is it some other sort of level, non-rotating plane that we live on?
Can we say level-ish?
Level-ish.
I can go with level-ish.
Okay, done. That's it. Here's the thing. Simulation, extended plane, level-ish, whatever. As long as it's not a spinning globe, we're on the same team. That's it. All right. But again, don't let that bias any of your analysis because your analyses are awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, like I said, I'm not prepared to say the earth is a spinning globe. One of the major problems with all of these discussions, of course, it's a bridge too far to talk to mental midgets, again, not an ad hom because I explained exactly why they're mental midgets, just for the people who think that's an ad hom. It is not. As long as you insult people with an explanation of the argument, it is not an ad hom, just for the people listening that don't know the difference. With mental midgets, they're probably only capable of going so far as helio versus geocentrism, which I'm actually glad Austin started doing that because people's brains melt when they hear flat. So let them keep their ball first. And because there's really, I haven't seen any legitimate definitive proof of rotation. So it's a little easier to have that discussion than it is to completely change the shape. Once they realize that there's no actual spin, now the next step you could say, okay, now let's get to the issue of curvature. This is kind of an issue. But the big thing for me is the verification of continent location. And for some reason, that has not been done. And people get all triggered when I bring up the planes flying, the experiment I told you about, the planes flying, accounting for all the variables. Because when you have enough planes and you have enough boats and you have the drones flying next to the planes, well, now you can actually verify everything, right? You can verify each of those. So if you can do that, then you have your globe.
Isn't isn't this one flight route enough? New Zealand to Argentina, FlightAware says that's the shortest route, but it goes all the way up to San Francisco, all the way over to Texas, and all the way
Yeah.
back down.
So
And then
they're
you look at it, and they're straight line.
well, their logic is they need to pick up some more passengers, right?
Yeah, but the logic is it's a straight line. What did your mother teach you?
Well, here's the thing though. If you don't, that's still, you're still not accounting for, what is that? Australia and Africa.
I'm talking about this flight route, okay? This flight route. This is the globe model, which is not a model, and this is the flat Earth
Yeah.
map. Okay.
How long do you think
Welcome to
it's going to
flat Earth.
be before a rogue flat earther hijacks a fighter jet and just makes whatever flight he wants around Antarctica?
Couple days.
Because really, that's all it would take, right? Because if
Yeah, but nobody would believe he did it. Then he'd crash into the firmament, and then they would say, "Crazy flat earther steals jet, wastes millions of dollars." It's not that easy. It's not that easy, especially because you can't fly across Antarctica if we're right. If the globe is right, you can fly
Well, there's
across.
one of my other ideas is to just put up a giant hot air balloon from the middle of Antarctica, and if you saw that it was an island, I mean that's a step in the direction of a globe, maybe.
I don't think no, because it could be a continent off of South America.
It could be, but if you could see it, yeah, it would depend on how much you could see, right? Because there's
Can't see
islands.
that far. You can't see that far.
No, but if you were on the hot air balloon
And
and
how are
you
you gonna?
had
You're on now. We're on
and,
a hot air
and you
balloon
had like
in
the
Antarctica.
P900, you had like the P900s or even more powerful telescopes. Could you get like some of these super high powered
So now we got a
astronomy?
high powered telescope on a hot air
Yeah,
balloon in Antarctica.
yeah.
We're gonna go up in the air, and we're gonna be able to film and transmit and land somewhere and survive. Okay.
No, I'm
Right.
saying if somebody wanted to like someone on the globe side who wanted to prove the globe,
Yeah, but they
they could.
won't because they can't. It
No,
just
but
it's
you would think you
statistically it's
would.
not possible.
I know, but you would think that that if the Earth is a globe, it would have been done. That's my point. Like as
Right.
if
Well,
the
they
Earth,
say the terrain in Antarctica is too crazy, and they don't know where they're going to land. That's where balloons are. There's no roads to recover them. It won't work.
no, I'm saying if the Earth were a globe, it would have already been done. You
Maybe
see,
if it was a globe, there'd
yeah.
be people flying. You'd be flying over Antarctica from Sydney to Chile all the time.
Well, there would also be, I think there'd be way more like tour stations, like full-time tour stations where you can go wherever you want. They'd have road systems. I mean, look at Alaska. There's not a lot of roads, but there are some. You could independently explore Alaska.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, you'd be able to do that unless there's something else going on and the aliens are there or whatever. But anyway, this was a fascinating conversation. At some point, I would like to get you and Mark and Austin together for something.
I'm down.
So obviously we'll give Austin some time. Let's see how, you know, all that plays out. But yeah, I didn't really see a problem with Austin's videos afterwards, but
I don't have the only problem I have is the guy's not talking to anybody. Everybody's freaking out. I think that I'm a prominent enough figure in this movement where if he has something to say, maybe wants to pass a message to me or something, it would be helpful. But if he's having family issues, I don't know what the issue is, or it's just too many people are getting very suspicious, and I don't know how to defend him.
yeah, I mean, yeah, some of those trolls you probably don't need to respond to at all.
I don't know. I'm talking about just flat earthers. They're
Oh,
getting
right.
one's getting worried. I don't respond to the trolls at all. I mean, they're just
Yeah. Well, we'll see what their responses to this video is
they'll
because
be all over it. It'll be
it's the same thing
crazy.
with Mark. People thought Mark wouldn't answer some of the questions I asked, and he answered all of them, and so did you.
Did you
So
want to ask me about my Jewish heritage or anything like that?
I don't I don't really care about that, but I
Good.
know
Neither do I. Neither do I.
some people get really weird about that.
I know, really weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, that's I don't want to go there, especially not for YouTube, but
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I'm an open book. I've never turned down a question.
well,
So
I'm just curious as to what they're going to come up with next because they were basically egging me on to ask some of those questions, and yeah, you answered all of them,
that's all they
so
had. They got nothing better than that.
they had nothing else.
Okay.
They were just calling you a shill because of the security issue, which you say you've addressed, and you're on your way to independent verification of that.
Right.
So
You know what? You know, Microsoft, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, uh, Facebook, and every other Bank of America, they've all been hacked and lost
yeah, that's true.
KYC information and social security numbers and account numbers and all sorts of stuff. The stuff in the app, you're already sharing it with everybody else willingly.
Yeah.
Your password. So we took care of
Yeah,
that.
I don't know. Maybe they weren't even, maybe they were just trolls who weren't for real, but they just kept going on and
No,
on
they
about it.
did. They did hack into it, and they were able to pull up everybody, and it sucked, but it was illegal what they did, and it was a hard hack to do. And they're the only ones that got the information, and they're like, we're so concerned about everybody's location and everything, and now it's exposed. No, you're exposing it. Okay, it's like it's so stupid. It's so stupid. People know where I live. I give out my address. I'm like Mark Sargent. I give it all out, right? But
Yeah.
they do creepy things like McToon is calling my daughter. He found her phone
Oh,
number
wow,
and
that's
is
messed up.
harassing my daughter, right?
Did you see my my anti-flat earth grifter series?
I don't think so.
So and you know what's weird? Part one, so I was able to recover all of my 5,000 videos because I have quadruple redundancy, but one I wasn't able to get, which was Flat Earth Grifters Part One. I have Part Two and Three, which I will upload again. But I go over McToon and his micro expressions and all of that. It was very interesting to compare Craig of Fight the Flat Earth to McToon because Craig genuinely seems to enjoy humiliating himself and losing every single Flat Earth debate. Whereas McToon, it looks like McToon is severely compromised and people are forcing him to even talk about Flat Earth. Like he has no joy. It seems like he's totally miserable in everything he does regarding Flat Earth.
His stated goal is to make me poor and homeless. That is his dream. That's what he
If
wants.
I had to guess, I would guess that he's completely compromised and doing everything against his will and basically reading from a script. If I had to guess.
That makes sense.
So, because his eyes look so miserable. It's almost sad to watch any of his videos.
I told you I was at the Greg Locke debate, and everyone, a lot of people, hey Dave, good to meet you. I'm meeting so many people, and I'm walking by, and then one guy shakes my hand, and I was like, hey, what's your name? And he goes, Dave, it's me, it's Michael. And I looked at him. First, I didn't know he was 4 feet tall, and I literally got this feeling like I still want to chop my hand off. Okay, and this was I don't know how long ago. It was a year ago, and it was just such a creepy feeling, and that's it. And that's also where I met Duffy, also. And Duffy and McToon were at the same debate before TFE was announced. That's weird.
Yeah.
It's a coincidence.
Yeah, I'm sure it's all coincidental, but yeah, no, obviously, sorry you had to deal with that. Like, obviously, there's a certain off limits family. I mean, I mean, it depends on types of mobsters, but even actual murderers wouldn't, there used to be a certain class of criminal back in the day where they don't cross that line into family, but apparently
Yeah,
that's all
that
gone by
that
the
that's
wayside.
unexcusable. But
Yeah.
you know, and he was using a secret UK number. He's routing his calls through different numbers and stuff.
Yeah, there's some really deranged. I mean, it's so weird. I just don't call me crazy, but it just seems like there couldn't organically be this many unhinged lunatics acting in this man because you would think they'd have something better to do with their lives if they weren't, actually compromised or forced in some way to do these things.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a spiritual war, and people are being compromised in all different ways. And I hope they find their way.
One more question I just thought of. How long are you going to keep doing like all of these podcasts. Like you have an insane amount of energy.
Until the entire world collapses due to the truth.
So you're
Right?
not stopping no matter what.
I'm not stopping because, people are like, oh, you're doing it for money. It's all about app sales. Guess what? The app does support me. But am I charging $20 for the app? No, I'm charging $3. Right? Am I charging $20 a month for the subscription? Like there's the dating feature on the app. People are already getting married because of this thing, right? And what's Match? It's like $40 a month. I charge $11 a year, and you get everything on the app.
Well,
and I also make it so you can get a free subscription too, right?
You know,
so why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Good.
You know, it's really crazy. The people that are criticizing you for your three, single digit app, they don't realize like NASA has taken from them, like calculate how much NASA has taken from out of the pocket of every taxpayer.
Yeah.
I mean, they've taken
they support NASA. These people.
they've taken billions and billions and billions. You've taken a couple bucks.
I've taken $3 and
only from willing. Yeah, you didn't force anybody to give you that money. It was all consensual, unlike NASA.
And it's amazing. They all have the same script. The same comments come in. They use the word grifter. They use the worst. They're like leaky app. They love saying leaky app. And it's the same thing. Like they're usually empty channels. So I don't know if they're bots or actually just lazy trolls.
Usually I respond to those as like, wait till you find out about the NASA grifters. And they usually don't respond there because that's their own logic is if you're making
that's good.
If you're making money, but NASA's making way more, so therefore they're way more fraudulent.
Yeah. And then they're asking for super chats. What do you get for that super chat? What do you get? I'm giving you some stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So yeah, no, this was a fascinating conversation. You were one of the most requested people. Sorry it took so long, but my schedule is and your schedule also, obviously. But we'll definitely do it again. I want to get together, with quite a few of the bigger flat Earth proponents to talk about specific logical issues. And basically, the other thing is, like people have said, like on Mindshock, even when I had my bigger channel, there really wasn't that much trolling just because, one, I don't take sides, but two, I mean, I'm just objectively calling out the fallacy. Like, what is the response to somebody? Like when the Glober has like 20 fallacies in a row, these are objective fallacies. It's not like they're debatable. Like that is the fallacy. So it doesn't mean they're wrong because there's the fallacy, but it's not debatable that they're arguing fallaciously. So people always used to comment like, I don't get that much trolling on my channel because I'm just objectively calling out the issues instead of just randomly taking sides.
I need a ruling on a fallacy.
Yeah.
So I think it was Nathan Thompson that coined this, that sending a balloon up to see the shape of the earth is called the Snoop Dogg fallacy because you don't have to get high to figure out the shape of the earth. Is that legit?
Technically, that would be an appeal to humor fallacy.
Okay. So it's not legit. I want to call him out on it.
That would be an appeal to humor logical fallacy.
Okay.
And again, the fallacy means just because you use a fallacy doesn't mean you're wrong, though. So that's the basic fallacy. So it doesn't mean not true. It doesn't mean untrue. Okay. A lot of people don't understand that about fallacies too, which is you could check out on my channel the intro to fallacies. I go over a whole bunch. And what's really funny is just in the world of conspiracy, because again, with down deep inside the rabbit hole with your podcast, even before Flat Earth, did you notice how all of the anti-conspiracy theorists, they were only using fallacies too, like way before Flat Earth? So it's just very curious how the people that are because I just call conspiracy theorists critical thinkers because they're people who are not brainlessly accepting a narrative.
Conspiracy analysts.
Yeah, there you go. Conspiracy analysts. Whereas coincidence theorists are and that triggers that. The reason I use that is because it triggers people so bad because it exposes, like, imagine you're an anti-conspiracy theorist. That means you're theorizing all of these things are coincidences. And when it's phrased that way, it gets them to really think about how silly they are. And they get so triggered, which is why I just keep using it.
All right. I like it.
All right. So thanks again, Dave, for joining us. Another very interesting conversation here. Plenty more to come. If you want to help support the Mindshock podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Check the link in the description. Help logic and reason return to a world where it is quickly going extinct. Although, obviously, flat Earth is a topic that is one of my favorite topics for learning about logic because you just get to see so many fallacies and so many psychological triggers, like unlike any other topic other than maybe Tartaria. You could also check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. And Dave, if you have anything else to add on where people can find you or anything else.
You can find all my channels, my YouTube channels, my X, everything at flatearthdave.com. Please subscribe to all of those. And if you have the app and you love it and you haven't left a review, leave me a review because the trolls are out there and they're trying to give me as many 1 stars as they can when, the majority are still 5 stars. They're having a hard time bringing it down, but it'd be nice to get some 5 stars on top of those 1s. And that's it. The app is fun. Get it, don't get it. Go to my website, tons of free stuff there. And just remember, you're not stupid. It's stupid.
And just one more point, real quick, that we didn't touch upon. If you notice, like, for example, on Bigfoot, you don't have all of these anti Bigfoot grifters coming up and downvoting Bigfoot apps and all these things. Because if you really think something is that dumb, why would you dedicate all of this time and energy to something that's so silly, so dumb, has zero evidence? I just always thought that was fascinating. Like, you don't see these like, how many people are going on Ghost Finder apps and just giving it all 1 stars every single day, going on all of the ghost Reddits and the ghost Twitters on and just saying how dumb it is? Because if you don't believe in ghosts and you think all that's stupid, you don't do that. So it's their subconscious is obviously recognizing something.
All right. That's it.
All right. Thanks for joining us. This is Bruce
Thanks.
McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.
See you.